went under the wheels.
Perfected.
Welcome to Under the Wheels. I'm Matthew.
I'm Gabe.
And in today's episode, we're going to cut through Ghost of Tsushima. Ooh, I thought there would be a groan there. I was like, I almost prepped you for it in our little pre-show meeting. I was like, you're gonna like this one. It's gonna cause you to groan. I'm gonna get 2 groans in a row, 2 episodes in a row, 2 groans in a row.
No, cut through Ghost of Tsushima was actually all right.
Good. I'm either getting better or blander. I don't know which. So I think this is actually a good time to talk about it because Ghost of Tsushima has been out for a couple of months now. But because the PlayStation 5 is being released, I think it's going to spark, well, one, it's going to spark more interest in the game, and 2, the online component has brought back a lot of people who have forgotten about it to start playing again. So
yeah,
we're going to try and make this as relevant as possible. But before we do that, Gabe, what have you been watching lately? Or what have you been playing lately, since it's a video game themed episode?
I've been playing Ghost of Tsushima so I can beat it, and so we can talk about it. That and MLB The Show, which I play like constantly. I usually alternate between MLB The Show and another game.
Mm-hmm. Which version of the show? Is it the free one that PlayStation released like last year?
No, I mean, it's the current one,
okay.
2020 or whatever. But, so we were just talking about Borat 2. I watched Borat 2.
Oh, okay.
You know, it's good. I don't think it's quite as funny as the first one. Especially because, like, you know, a lot of it relies on, like, hidden camera type, like, pranks. And, not quite hidden camera, but that same idea. And everyone knows who Borat is. Like, that movie was super popular. So they kind of have to find ways to work around that. But it's actually kind of clever because they bake that into the movie. Like, he shows up in America again, and everyone's like, "Hey, Borat!" And they start saying, like, his catchphrases from the movie. He's like, "Oh, shit, they know who I am. I can't pass through the States undetected." So a lot of the time he's trying to dress up as a quote-unquote typical American. Mm-hmm. So he puts on a fat suit and then, like, jeans and a jean jacket and a cowboy hat and says, like, howdy to everybody.
So Sacha Baron Cohen is playing Borat, who's playing an American badly.
Yeah, exactly. He's playing Borat trying to disguise himself as an American so people don't recognize him as Borat. Because he is not aware that the first Borat movie was really popular in America.
Okay. Which is also baked into the plot, I'm sure.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Okay.
But yeah, it's funny. I don't think it's quite as good as the first one, but there's a couple scenes that are pretty amazing. Like, there's one where, you know, in this one he has a daughter who comes with him, and he buys her like a cupcake with a little plastic baby on it. I think it's supposed to be like a baby shower or like gender reveal, cupcake set. Because there's like blue cupcakes with blue frosting and baby boys on them, and then there's like cupcakes with pink frosting and baby girls on them. So anyway, she like eats the cupcake really quickly and accidentally swallows the little plastic doll.
What?
So, like, you know, they're like, "Oh crap, we need to like take you to a doctor." So they go to a Christian women's health clinic and like talk about how they need to remove the baby, like get an abortion. And it's like, and they like, the scene is so packed with innuendo, and then the pastor they're talking to is so just viscerally disturbed by the conversation they're having. He's so uncomfortable. It's hilarious. Because he's like, he's obviously not in on the joke. He doesn't know they're talking about like she ate a plastic toy. He thinks like, oh, they're coming to me for an abortion. So you know, because this is a religious clinic, he's like trying to dissuade them as much as possible. Like, you got to keep it, you got to keep it, you got to keep it. But it's pretty good. It's pretty.
That's pretty funny. That's pretty smart. Like I haven't seen the original Borat, but I hear it's really it has a lot of like smart moments like that where it like uses kind of other people's conventions to the movie's advantage.
Oh yeah, definitely. I think there's like, someone pointed this out that like Americans have a tendency to tolerate each other's weirdness sometimes to like an extreme level, and that a lot of Borat, he says like really extreme and terrible things, and then like some people do agree with him, and that is kind of shocking. And it is like you could sort of say it's like an expose on the underbelly of American culture in that way, but I think to an extent it's also it's also just about how like incredibly tolerant a lot of Americans are, because he does like all these crazy hijinks and like says all this crazy crap, and a lot of people are just like, yeah, sure, whatever, man, cool.
Well, I also wonder how much of that is just like being polite, because I think a lot of people.
Oh, exactly. Like people are very tolerant of other people's bullshit for the sake of politeness. Or at least they were back in 2006 or whatever. Maybe not so much anymore.
I think a lot of them are still very polite, like in well, I don't know, maybe not. I was gonna say they are in face-to-face interactions, but get online, take that filter of civility off, and go to town. Oh, geez,
Yeah, well, it's like there's a segment in the first one where he's at like a fancy Southern, like cotillion type dinner. So he's like making small talk with the other people at the table, and he's asking like all the men, what do you do? And this one guy says, he's like, oh, I'm retired, and then he's like, oh, you are retard. And like no one gets that offended. They try to explain to him. It's like, no, retired. He doesn't work anymore. He's like, no, yes, I have retard brother. He not work either. Like, but it's like, it's funny how like he's just openly insulting everyone at the table, and they're like very, they're kind of gnashing their teeth a little bit, but they do try to like okay, he's he's foreign, he doesn't really speak English, let's try and explain to him like what we're actually saying. So it's just that dynamic is interesting to watch, and it's also interesting to see like who's in on the joke versus who's not.
Yeah,
because like in the second movie, he the coronavirus lockdown happens, and he ends up stranded with nowhere to go. So he ends up staying with these two kind of like redneck guys who are big like Trump supporters and like QAnon dudes and stuff, but they're totally in on the joke. Like they know they're in a Borat movie. And there's even like a point where they kind of break the fourth wall, because like he enlists their help in doing a couple pranks, and like the camera cuts to them really quick at one point. They're like, oh, holy shit, he's actually gonna do it. Like he has like a crazy plan, a stunt in mind, and I guess they like didn't think he would actually go through with it. But it's just funny watching them react. They're like, oh shit, he's actually gonna do it.
Yeah, oh my god, I messed it up twice. Sacha Baron Cohen is really that dedicated to making sure he can get the thing he needs to get.
Oh, absolutely.
Whether he fails in it or not.
But yeah, so it's funny, especially in the second movie, kind of the seeing the delineation between people who are in on it versus people who aren't.
That's good. Yeah, I haven't watched the first one. I probably should. I haven't watched the second one. Because I haven't watched the first one, I haven't watched the second one. So, but I did hear that they took advantage of the fact, like you said, the fact that Borat the movie is popular, and they worked that in, and I'm like, oh well, that's a good way to go. And I hear the daughter does like a really good job. Like people are
she's really good.
Like, she should be nominated for an Academy Award, and I'm like,
I mean, I don't know, maybe it's tough to like nominate people doing mockumentaries for Academy Awards, or like hidden camera pranks, because it's like they did a good job acting if they were able to fool these people into thinking they were something other than they weren't. So Yeah, you could give him an award on that basis, but like in terms of the movie acting, like it's good, but it's not,
Yeah.
it's not maybe the transcendent quality you would want to hand a golden trophy to. It's like that's like the debate I always have
status.
Yeah, it's like the debate I always have with Joaquin Phoenix for I'm Still Here. It's like, should he win an award for like best performance by a lead actor in real life? Because he convinced a lot of people that he had lost his mind and that he was going to be a rapper now. And like that, I mean, that's hard to do. It's hard to pull off that kind of a performance, that kind of a hoax in real life. So it's like, is that award worthy? I don't know.
Well, I guess the other question is like, could you enter Borat in for documentary just because the actual restrictions? And I think the answer is going to be no, because they didn't do that for the first movie. But there's a lot of, to say that Borat is edited and constructed any more or less than a regular documentary, I think is stupid, because like documentaries are clearly, we talk about it all the time on the show, like, documentaries always take a point of view. Documentaries do a lot of the same techniques that were hyper refined in reality television. So, if you feel like, maybe I can edge out another documentary, why not submit Borat, whatever it's called, second movie film or whatever, subsequent movie film to, let's see if we can win an Academy Award. But,
subsequent movie film always reminds me of the Aqua Teen Hunger Force movie, because it's like, it was called Aqua Teen Hunger Force : movie film for theaters. And it's like, how you have like TV show : the movie. In this, they write : out as a word.
Is colon the body part spelled the same as colon the punctuation? Yeah.
Yes, it is.
Yeah, it is, right? Okay. That's funny. I don't know. I find that funny. I find grammar humor funny for some reason. I'm that old guy.
You're that guy.
I'm that guy. This is why I'm on Under the Wheels, because, how many people actually obsess over other people's grammar, even though I misspeak all the time?
People on the internet quite a bit. You can lose an argument for using the wrong version of their or your.
You know what? But you know what? Fuck that. Yes, you should lose an argument if you type your or your incorrectly, or their. God. Or don't use the Oxford comma. It's like, no.
That's a
slap you for that.
Oxford commas are important.
They are the most
They're
controversial.
Very important.
The most controversial that no one really talks about, but everyone thinks about, is if your name ends with an S, do you do apostrophe S or just apostrophe? That, I think, is going to be the next big grammatical internet debate.
Perhaps.
What else have you been watching?
I watched Color Out of Space from, Richard Stanley, who has not made a movie since he got fired from that really bad Island of Dr. Moreau movie that John Frankenheimer took over.
Are you serious?
Yep.
Oh,
he was the original director for that. He got canned. John Frankenheimer took over. Hasn't made a movie since. Then he comes out with Color Out of Space, starring Nick Cage. And, it's pretty good. It's the best stuff is obviously Nick Cage. Mm-hmm. There's, some pretty janky CGI in it. When I say pretty janky, I mean, it's pretty bad. It's really bad, actually. There's some really bad CGI in that movie.
Mummy 2 level bad.
Yeah.
You had to take a moment there.
It's that bad. But, it's reasonably entertaining. Got some neat visuals. And it's got Nicolas Cage. So, you can't complain about that.
Was that an Austin recommendation for you? I think he
mm-hmm.
was. He talked about it a bit. Yeah. Okay.
He brought it up, I think, on the last episode that he was on. Austin Returns.
Like a year ago.
I mean, he was back in June, but yeah.
Yeah, pretty
June
much.
or July.
Okay. And so, yeah.
It's like a Witness.
Oh wow, nice.
Like a
I still have to watch VFW. That's the one.
I still have to watch that as well.
It's the one movie Austin recommended that I watched that I've really been like, I know I need to watch it. I keep forgetting to like just put it on. It's got my boy Stephen Lang, and it's got your favorite lighting with the reds and the purples and the blues. You're in Austin's, I would say, because I think Austin loves that lighting now too. Because it seems like
I've taught him to love it. I think.
Embrace the color purple in your lighting, people.
Hell yeah.
I don't know. It almost feels like a cliche. Like in a year, that's going to become the new desaturate. That's going to become the new teal and orange.
It already is. It's already a cliche.
Okay. Ugh.
It's already been ruined by HBO. Every HBO show looks like that.
That's the hashtag prestige television.
Hell
coming
yeah.
soon to HBO Max, which is also going to release hashtag crap television. So.
Well, you know that purple is taking over when the logos for HBO, Facebook, Messenger, and Instagram are all purple now.
Yeah, they're like
it's gone corporate.
Purple. It's we need to introduce orange and green lighting into the schema of television.
Yellow and green.
Yellow and ugh.
We need to introduce the David Fincher color scheme into television lighting. Yellow, green, and gray.
Oh man. Well, green was big for a while because of the Matrix. Everyone was doing that sort of like sickening green from not fluorescent bulbs, but
Matt, everything was 20 years ago.
Yeah,
it's time for it to come back.
That's true, because I was going to say, well, what about black and white? But we had a bunch of movies that were all desaturated to the point of almost being black and white, so it counts. Yeah.
Yeah.
Green.
Remember when Zack Snyder was like, "Hey, let's make a Watchmen movie, but have it so desaturated it's basically black and white."
Let's make Justice League, and the ultimate like Zack Snyder moment to me is the fact that he's bringing in the black Superman outfit, like the black and white Superman outfit, as like a testament to like, this is my version of Superman. Of course, your version of Superman is literally completely desaturated colors. We've seen the other movies. You've just gone full black and white now, Mr. Snyder.
That needs to be a new meme. Anytime there's some like dumb, meat-headed, campy bullshit in an action movie, especially a superhero movie, it's a Snyder moment.
It's a Snyder moment. Hashtag Snyder moment.
Exactly.
I'll start trending it on Twitter. Me and like the 3 people that follow me. It was funny because for a while all superheroes in like leather and your red had to be burgundy was a thing. And now it's like your superhero movie in the DC universe has to have desaturated colors. It was for a while. Now they're embracing color palettes. Maybe too much if you look at the marketing.
Who's the guy who directed Batman and Robin and Batman Forever?
Oh yeah, you're right. Joel Schumacher. He brought in all the neon lighting.
Dude, well, not even the neon lighting. Like, I think Zack Snyder's biggest influence in terms of making superhero movies, or perhaps comic book movies in general, seems to be Joel Schumacher.
But for all the like wrong reasons? Or are you saying like because he's sort of the counterpoint to it?
No. Like he's literally just Joel Schumacher without the bright colors.
Do you think he's aware of the fact that like Batman Forever and Batman and Robin had extremely strong, not even undertones, but homosexual undertones and overtones throughout like the whole movie? Like, do you think he's aware of that? Because like Zack Snyder to me strikes me as like hyper masculine, you know, like I'm showing off the male form in all its masculinity, and like Joel Schumacher's like I'm showing off the male form because I like the male form in a sexual manner.
Zack Snyder's like Joel Schumacher's movies come off as gay because he's gay.
He did. I mean, there's literally a section in all of the suit montages where the character turns so that you can admire their ass. So
yeah, that's what I mean.
Yeah.
Joel Schumacher's a gay man, so he makes movies informed by his personal perspective, which makes sense. Zack Snyder, his movies are like, he's so intent on it. He seems so intent on appearing like hyper masculine and super not gay that they come off seeming super gay.
What was our hashtag for Zack Snyder?
Hashtag Snyder moment.
Hashtag Snyder moment.
I was listening to an episode a while ago where we were talking about like I mentioned that Bob Arum, the head of Top Rank Boxing, was trying to like crap on the UFC by saying like grappling and jiu-jitsu is gay or something. That's a Snyder
There's going to be no homo in my sport about men wearing boxer shorts, throwing punches at each other. No homo, damn it. Oh, man.
At Top Rank Boxing, we require our fighters to wear shorts down to their knees, unlike the UFC, those whores.
Yeah, those guys crawling over each other wearing actually, like, really useful bottoms because it keeps their junk from, like, flopping around everywhere.
I mean, in MMA, you typically just wear compression shorts so guys can't grab your shorts.
Yeah, or your junk.
Well, you're wearing a cup, so it's like there's, you know...
Yeah. I've heard that sometimes, though, like, I know a lot of football players don't wear cups because it interferes too much with, like, their running and things like that. I guess, I thought nut shots were disallowed in MMA or in UFC.
They are disallowed, but they happen...
They happen all the time.
All the time. Because you have no idea how many inside leg kicks go a little too high and land right on the groin.
Man, your dick is really tiny, but your ball sack is huge.
No, there was a fight like maybe a couple months ago. There's this one karate fighter who's very famous for his like jumping, spinning back kick that is so powerful it sends dudes like flying across the cage. Mm-hmm. He did it twice and hit his opponent in the groin twice. And the second time it was so bad they had to stop the fight because the dude's nuts were sent to like the fucking Shadow Realm. So it was like it was ruled a no contest or something due to, you know,
nut shots,
super powered nut shots.
So it's like Dragon Ball Z. You just see the energy forming around his leg. He sends it forward, and all of a sudden his nuts just like completely shatter like the planet Namek.
That's exactly what happened, though. This so guy, like, he was like on the ground retching for 20 minutes while while the other dude was being interviewed. It was so weird.
Just pan over. It's just Dan Hedaya and Blood Simple puking everywhere. Fuck, man. Jesus Christ. Oh,
it was horrible. Oh. And what's crazy is, like, that karate guy, his name's Raymond Daniels. He had, like, a highlight reel knockout a year ago that's still all over social media to this day because it was so flashy. But it's like that was his one moment. That was his 15 seconds of fame. Now he's just the guy who, like, jumping, spinning back kicked a dude in the groin 2 times.
I'm trying to think of it, like, I can't, there's like when you see a movie or like if you go to a live event and you see a fighter who only has one move and like or like a really bad like dance performance and they only have this one move that they think looks really good. Like, I'm just imagining him doing that like over and over, like quarter circle forward kick or quarter circle back and kick, and just like the Tatsumeki Seppukiaku, he's just like flying in the same spot as the other guy's just standing there like, is this all he knows how to do? I'm just going to wait for the time to expire. Is this all he can do?
Well, I think it's a situation where, like, you know, he's trying to back up and run the guy onto it. But, like, because that's his favorite move, you know, this guy knows what he's trying to do. So I think both times he tried to kick out the standing leg on the spin. And as he was closing, he got just, you know, kicked at maximum force in the groin twice.
That makes my nuts hurt.
Yeah.
Just a little bit.
I saw replays of it. It was so bad. And then, like, the interview, too, was crazy because like this dude is, you know, he's probably coming to grips with the fact that he'll never have children or be able to like perform sexually again.
He's gonna be singing soprano for the rest of his life.
Yeah, pretty much. He's gonna be Michael Jackson from now on. And you know, John McCarthy or whoever like steps into the cage and interviews Raymond Daniels, like, so Raymond, that was kind of a weird fight. Like, what did you think? And then Raymond Daniels, first thing he says, not even like, I'm sorry for blasting this dude's, you know, genitals into another dimension. He's like, first off, I want to give glory to God, through whom all things is possible, and who gave me my gifts that I displayed here today. It's like, I don't think this is the time, man. You didn't display a whole lot.
I want to give glory to God for helping my kick land right on his testicles.
No, it's like, dude, don't. That's such bad taste. What are you talking about? Like, it would be one thing if he won spectacularly instead of like fouling the guy to death. I mean, in most situations, that would be called he would lose the fight due to the disqualification because he fouled him twice. Mm-hmm. But I think because the promotion likes him, they just made it a no contest.
Oh no.
Yeah.
Dude, it's happened. The corruption in UFC, it's come full circle.
Well, this is in Bellator, which, as corrupt as the UFC is, Bellator is like way more corrupt.
Where is Bellator?
Yeah, it's another US-based fight promotion. It's just smaller.
Oh, they need the money.
Yeah.
They're like, we can't disqualify him. We need the money, damn it.
It's the promotion where they do all their events on like Native American reservations because there's no athletic commission, which means like they can let people do steroids. They can, they can like a guy who's been knocked out and is heavily concussed can come back after like a month because there's no medical suspensions. They can do all kinds of shady shit.
It's like Fight Club.
Yeah, it kind of is.
Shit.
Anyway, back to movies.
Yeah. The thing that we actually talk about. Yeah.
I know, the actual thing that this show is about. I also watched Tenebrae, which is a Italian giallo slasher movie from Dario Argento. Mm-hmm. And like, I've been trying to find a Dario Argento movie that I actually like because I've watched a bunch of his greatest hits and they're all right.
Oh my gosh. Build suspension. All right.
I know.
Tenebrae.
So I kept reading that Tenebrae is like his best one, and it's actually pretty good.
Oh no.
It's like definitely a high witness. It's a lot more like he tried to. It's one of his later ones. So his kind of heyday was in the 70s, and then Tenebrae was made in 1982, and it was made during a period of time where he was getting like threatening phone calls from people talking about how his slasher movies are perverting like the youth of Italy and stuff. And he was also getting accused of being like a misogynist because all his movies feature like beautiful women being murdered in very sexually suggestive ways a lot of the time. So he decided to kind of like make a movie that's very meta about slasher movies.
Sounds very Italian.
Very Italian. It's also like a lot more realistic, or he tried to make it feel more realistic, so he got rid of a lot of the very flashy colored lighting that you see in like Suspiria. So he, is more like not desaturated, but kind of cold, natural lighting that you'd see in like police procedurals from that era. And the story is about a horror writer who is stalked by a serial killer when he goes on a book tour in Italy. So it kind of plays into a lot of the criticisms of Argento's previous movies and kind of, it's almost like a meta-analysis of his career in a weird way. But it's actually pretty good. It's really well done. All the kills are pretty cool. And it's got interesting things to say about sort of the genre and about Argento's career. So, yeah, I liked it quite a bit. And I think it is his best slasher movie, I will say.
Now that you've watched all of his best movies?
Now that I've watched a bunch of his slasher movies, trying to find one that's like really good, this one is actually really good.
So what is it about? And again, I haven't seen any Dario Argento movies. That's right, Super American Matthew, Dario Argento. What is it? What do you think is the thing that prevents you from fully accessing them or fully enjoying them?
I think it's...
I like asking you questions like this.
Yeah.
This is the part that's fun for me.
I think it's their weird Italian hyper stylization, where
Interesting.
like, yeah, because it's like, for one thing, they don't. All the sound is ADR, so that audio is very important in horror. Sound builds up a lot of tension and suspense. Right. So when it's ADR'd sound, kind of already pulls you out of the scene. Mm-hmm. And, you know, that it doesn't do you any favors when you're trying to make a slasher movie. I think, secondly, a lot of his movies, especially in their most thrilling sequences, focus less on suspense and building up to like a big kill or something, and more on kind of the crazy, like, manic actions of the murders themselves, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Like it's kind of the shock value of what you're seeing as opposed to building up to the moment of shock value.
Yeah, exactly. Like there's a lot of, like, if you take Suspiria as an example, like there are some parts that are genuinely creepy, but you know, a lot of the movie or a lot of the scarier parts of the movie, or parts that are supposed to be scary, are just too loud. You know what I mean? Like they're like, the music's really loud and intense, and the energy of the scene is very manic, and there's lots of screaming and running and shaky cam, and you know, there's the black gloved killer with a razor blade or whatever, you know, the stereotypical giallo slasher villain. But there's no build up to it. It just sort of like, it's just this explosion of like fear and violence, which you know, may have an allure to it for some folks, but it's kind of, it's disappointing. Like, I would want that tension to be sustained longer and to be built up more, as opposed to just having like, boom, here you go, this chick's running, like glass is shattering, you know. And then also, because they're so stylized, some of the violence is super stylized to the point where it's like kind of silly. Like the first murder in Suspiria is so over the top. It's like admirable, but it's not scary or anything. Like, I admire how just batshit crazy it is.
Yeah.
But it's not scary. Whereas, like Tenebrae, for example, they do try to keep it much more down to earth. So it's, you know, it's not like these acrobatic, balletic. It's like, imagine Halloween, right? You got Mike Myers with a knife stabbing people, combined with a John Woo movie. So imagine, like, instead of Mike Myers just stabbing people, like, Mike Myers stabbing people in slow motion as they're flying through the air, and then their head, like, as they're being stabbed, they like fly into a very conveniently placed rope that looks like a noose, and they fly out the window, smashing the glass, and also get hanged. Like, that's the kind of shit you see in Giallo movies.
Well, it's like you've pretty much sold me a ticket, because that sounds like exactly what I want to see. But it also gets
like,
back to
I appreciate just how nuts it is, but at the same time, like, it's so nuts, it's not scary or disturbing. It's just like, whoa, what the fuck? That was crazy.
Right. It's sensational.
It's sensational, yeah. It's very Italian.
I don't want to belabor this too much, because you know, I do want to talk about Ghost of Tsushima, but it reminds me of, like, we were talking about Bly Manor, and the definition of what makes a good horror movie for people is so all over the map, because like, we make fun of I actually enjoyed it chapter 2, but probably more for like schlocky reasons than because it was particularly amazing. But like, it wasn't particularly scary, but studios seem to think that that's what people want. And then there's the whole brand of like, the Conjuring movies and things like that, where it's like, those build sort of creepiness, and then they have jump scares. And then you have like the Mike Flanagan stuff, which is just like, it builds tension and suspense very slowly, and it builds an impending atmosphere that makes you think. But also, Mike Flanagan's movies tend to go like one level deeper. I'm only going off of Gerald's Game because that's the only one I can reference. But like, Gerald's Game had a lot more going for it, and it just comes down to like, well, how do you define what good horror is? It feels so subjective, because there are a lot of people who I think enjoy the Gallo pictures. Gallo, right? Gallo. Giallo. Like J-Lo?
So giallo is the Italian word for yellow, because a lot of these in the late like 30s and 40s, there were a lot of like pulpy, serial killer and monster books that were very popular in Italy. Well, not just in the fascist days, but like 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s. And because they were printed on this
fascism, of course.
Yeah, I know. So, but they were printed on this cheap pulp paper, which turned yellow very quickly. And they usually had yellow book covers as well. So that material, like we call pulp stuff pulp fiction, like H.P. Lovecraft and The Shadow and The Phantom and all that. That's pulp. In Italy, that's yellow. Those are yellow stories. So, when Italian filmmakers started making kind of these ultra lurid, sensational movies, the same way that we would say, something like that made in the U.S., it's a pulp movie. In Italy, they'd say it's a yellow movie. It's giallo.
Gotcha.
But, in fairness to Argento, like, that's... His other movies, like, Inferno sucks, but Suspiria and, like, Deep Red are both pretty good. Or they're both decent. They're decent movies, but they're not, like, scary horror movies. They're more just, like, lurid and sensational. Whereas, like, Tenebrae is actually a good movie. Like, a very good movie.
You were down with the thesis, and he proved his thesis well. Pretty much, as opposed to like some other movies where it's like, oh, this is horror, and you're like, I'm not down with this as being a horror movie. But what he did fine. The skill is normally there, but in this case, it was for you skill and craft and motivation.
I mean, it's where it all came together, I think. Yeah.
Nice.
And then the last movie I watched over this little period was In the Mood for Love, which I know we're kind of long in the tooth on this section, so I'll just say it's a shiny and chrome. It's amazing.
Where did you watch it? Did you buy it, or did you
bought it? Yeah.
Oh, okay. Damn, I've been wanting to watch it ever since I watched The Grandmaster.
I like how The Grandmaster is what tempted you to watch it.
So I had watched Fallen Angels years ago. Someone was like, oh yeah, if you haven't seen it, Fallen Angels by Wong Kar-wai is like, it'll blow your mind. And let me tell you, Fallen Angels by Wong Kar-wai fucking blew my mind. And it's like, because like we didn't really go into the Thin Red Line, but I had only watched the first movie that I actually like was taking extensive notes on to become a better filmmaker was the Thin Red Line, and I only got through an hour of it before I was like, all right, I've written down too many notes, I need to take a break. Fallen Angels was very similar in how it used voiceover, how it used camera work, the mood that it set, and things like that. And so and then I watched The Grandmaster, which has a lot of kind of like the Wong Kar-wai staples of like there's heavy voiceover, really good use of lighting, very interesting camera work. But
there's a bunch of things that are speed ramped down for like no discernible reason.
Shot in 12 frames per second, projected at 60 frames per second when in the final shot. You're like, what? Why are you doing like this? Yeah, there's a lot of that, and so In the Mood for Love, I think the idea behind it is like the idea of it about like these two people whose spouses are having an affair. They like get together but don't get together, and like the suppression of emotion sort of thing. Like, I'd be really interested to see, mainly because also everyone says that's probably his best movie. So
yeah, I haven't seen any other movies of his, but it's amazing.
Yeah. Does it make you want to embark out on any other movies of his?
Yeah, but I have to find some.
I like Fallen Angels a lot, but of course it deals with like a hitman and like Takeshi Kanashiro's like this crazy dude who's not the hitman, but he's like jumping around and stuff. But but it's like it's three different characters, three different points of view, and like it's kind of like shit happens. There's no real plot to it, but it's kind of fun that way. But
nice.
In the mood.
What have you been watching lately?
I'll go over I'll skip some of the ones that are kind of rewatches, like Star Trek Beyond. In my mind, has moved from a high witness to a shiny and chrome. I really like Star Trek Beyond. Yeah.
Even though it's just Metal Gear / Metal Gear 2.
It's Chekhov's gun, the movie.
That's also, yes, Chekhov's gun, the movie.
Every time I watch it, that's the only thing I can think of. But it's got the best performances by all of those actors. The makeup's fantastic. The one thing that's kind of lacking is the villain, and I think it's just because they didn't have enough time to execute sort of like villain's poor motive plus the conscious of the villain taking over. But like it's incredibly tight for a movie. The parts that I thought used to drag don't really drag, and the visual effects are really awesome, and I like a lot of the style that Justin Lin brought. And it's not stupid like some of the other Star Trek movies.
Yeah.
But so I don't have a lot to say. I mean, I do have a lot to say about Star Trek Beyond, but not here. Have you ever seen Witness with Harrison Ford and Kelly McGillis?
No, but I saw that you wrote an article about it on underthewheels.com.
I did. And it's just like I'm sorry, it's a very cliche, but Witness to me is a witness. It's very good. So Harrison Ford nominated for an Academy Award for Best Supporting Actor. I think the only one he ever got. And he's really good in it, but it does feel like Harrison Ford is playing Harrison Ford, down to the fact that he is a carpenter at one point in the movie. And I think he's actually like using the tools in the way that you're supposed to. He's not just like pretending to be a carpenter, which is really cool. But it's really good. It's like the story itself is kind of dumb, but the execution of the story is very good, and it doesn't fall into like the usual cliche of, like Harrison Ford goes to this Amish community to recover, and he finds the simple life back in himself is a better life for him to live. Like, it doesn't do that, which I appreciated, and all the actors are really good for the most part. You get Viggo Mortensen's first big Hollywood role where he has no lines, but it's fun to see him. Harrison Ford's really good because he balances sort of like the cliche Harrison Ford character that you would think of with like sort of natural, like realistic empathy. So he doesn't he's still Harrison Ford, but you see like the charming persona that he could be if he's not acting all the time. Kelly McGillis is good in it. I guess it was her first major role, but she's pretty good in it. It got a lot of flack from the Amish community when it came out.
Why?
Because
aren't Amish not allowed to watch movies because it's technology or something?
Yeah, I think so. I think which might lead to one of the problems, because the Amish community complained about increased tourism, I guess because of the movie. But in the movie, they have a bunch of Amish people complaining about the increase in tourism. And also all of the Amish people are played by Mennonites.
They get very like up in arms about that.
Right, but none of the Amish people would appear on camera, so they had to hire a bunch of Mennonites. So, it's cool. The ending shootout takes place in a corn silo, which sounds like it'd be really dumb, but is actually pretty cool, and it takes up like 20 minutes of the movie.
Wow.
And Danny Glover's in it, and it's fun seeing young Danny Glover. So,
did Peter Weir direct this?
He did. It's his first studio movie.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, Peter Weir, he's He's such an interesting director, and he worked with John Seale, who was the DP for Mad Max Fury Road and the first Harry Potter movie, to put it into context.
Yeah.
But like Peter Weir's, he's really good at working with actors, and he has a very unconventional style when shooting his movies. It feels like, because like he doesn't really use traditional setups. It feels like there's a lot of roaming cameras, but there's not a lot of like typical shot reverse shot. It feels like every single close-up is just like a little bit too close, but it's all really effective. And like, if you've seen Dead Poets Society, there's the scene with Robin Williams and Ethan Hawke where, you know, Robin Williams is finally bringing out Ethan Hawke's performance, and it's done in like what looks like such a simple solution to it, but it's just like a very simple and elegant solution. And that's kind of how his movies feel. It's like, because there's moments in Witness, the beginning takes place in modern day Philadelphia of 1984, and it's all grimy and gross, and it's contrasted with sort of like the clean but like, you know, but like bygone look of the Amish village. But it all marries very easily and very well together, something that would be really hard to achieve normally. It feels seamless there. The fact that it kind of shifts genres halfway through, like Peter Weir handles that really well, where it feels seamless there. So, I mean, yeah, he's really good. I do want to watch Master and Commander, Far Side of the World. It seems like a goofy idea, but like after The Truman Show, Dead Poets Society, Witness, surprisingly, he's never really led me wrong. So I'd be willing to. I kind of want to watch
Master
that.
and Commander is a great movie.
Is it? It looks so corny, but everything I hear about it makes me really want to watch. Like, all the actors had to learn how to play their instruments, for example. I'm like, the fuck? Really? That sounds cool.
Oh yeah, it's great. I love it.
Are you a fan of Peter Weir?
I haven't seen a ton of his movies. I know he's like very highly regarded.
Yeah.
But I'm a big fan of Master and Commander. So.
Yeah.
And you're a fan of Truman Show. Yeah. And I haven't seen Truman Show, Witness, Dead Poets Society. I haven't seen like Picnic at Hanging Rock or Walkabout or any of those other Australian movies.
He was apparently from the new wave of Australian cinema, so I think some of that leaks into his American movies and how he handles them. But
that makes sense.
Truman
I'm also
Show's
a big
really
fan of John Seale, so
yeah. Well, why wouldn't you be?
Yeah, exactly.
You know, director of photography for The American President, which is actually shot really well. They hide Michael Douglas's gut extremely well throughout the entire movie. So there's that. The one other movie I wanted to kind of briefly touch on is Netflix had an animated movie come out called Over the Moon, which normally I wouldn't give two shits about because it looked very kind of carbon copy cliche. But it was directed by Glenn Keane, and for fans of animation, Glenn Keane is like a superstar. He's the guy who was the supervising animator on Ariel, Aladdin, Beast. He did a ton of other movies. He was one of the few Renaissance Disney animators who was able to make the move pretty seamlessly to animation. Was about to direct what ended up being Tangled, and then he was fired. But he then got an Academy Award when he directed the Kobe Bryant short film, Love Basketball, I think it's called. Which, if you haven't seen it, like, especially at this point, you should really watch it because it's really cool. Like, the animation technique and everything in it's really cool, and the score is done by John Williams. Freaking only Kobe Bryant could do something like that. Regardless of how you feel about him, it's worth a watch. So I was kind of expecting some interesting things from Over the Moon, and it's okay. It's fine. If you're an animation fan, you might want to search it out because the animation's really good, the storytelling's kind of whatever, and it has all of these really intrusive musical numbers. It's like when we talk about Netflix movies that are literally just the algorithm. The story and plotting of Over the Moon feels like the Netflix algorithm.
Interesting.
But the animation, like, there's this one scene where like this moon goddess is playing this little kid in ping pong, and it's like, it's zero gravity ping pong, and it could have been really lame, but it ends up looking really awesome. So it's like Dragon Ball Z mixed with ping pong mixed with zero G. It's really cool. And so there are scenes like that, but then it's also juxtaposed with like really intrusive, mediocre songs every like 5 minutes. So, and really bad pacing issues. So that is that as, because I know you dabble in animation a little bit, but if you dabble in animation, it's not worth watching.
Yeah, I'm not like an animation diehard to the point where I will watch a Disney movie. I'm not willing to do that to myself.
Yeah. And that's, I mean, Disney movies are weird because like with all things Disney, there's like the artistic value that the artists bring. Like even in live action ones, the set designers, the costume designers, they all bring like this really high level in most productions. And then there's sort of the corporate structure of the Walt Disney Company that's just like, yeah, but brand integrity above all. We can't have individual voices like calling out at all. And so it like, yeah, I totally get why like people have this love-hate with Disney animation where they're like, oh, it's so luscious and it looks so good and everything's so beautiful and the way they tell stories is so great. But I see one, you see them all, you don't have to watch them all. It's just, I wish there were more people like Miyazaki out there. That's all.
Yeah.
Or Leica films. Leica films are also really good about like...
I need to see more Leica films. It's like, there's a lot of their movies I've meant to see and then just never watched.
That sounds like everyone.
Yep.
I think one of the problems with Leica films is that their storytelling just isn't as good as other people. Like Disney movies, the stories are cliche, but the storytelling, getting from moment to moment, generally speaking, is really good. And the way that they mix up everything, like their storyboarding is fantastic and really on point with Disney movies. Whereas with Leica movies, like Kubo and the Two Strings is like, I want to like this movie so much more than I actually like it. I feel like that's like even with Nightmare Before Christmas, which was, done by Henry Selick, who founded Leica with some other people. It's like the movie, I want to like so much of this movie more than I actually like it. So yeah. The last movie I watched was Catch Me If You Can, and not really much to say about that. I think it's like a trifecta of Spielberg's best movies to me. But if you haven't seen it in a while, it's really funny watching Leonardo DiCaprio easily play the age 16 to 28. So it's good. It's probably his best role. And fantastic camera work too. It's like a masterclass in camera work.
Oh, okay.
All right. Do you have any comments about any of those?
No, because I haven't seen any of those.
You haven't seen Catch Me If You Can?
Nope.
Oh, wow. Oh, no.
I'm not like actively looking for Spielberg movies to watch.
I mean, I don't blame you, considering the last couple have been sort of like... Okay, well, the last two have been sort of like... only for real Spielberg fans would you search out Ready Player One continually or The Post. Heaven forbid, freaking West Side Story remake starring Ansel Elgort. Oh, God. Coming to a theater near you in 2021. All right, let's talk about something fun. Let's talk about Ghost of Tsushima.
Hell yeah.
All right. Gabe, what is Ghost of Tsushima about? Or what would you like to talk about on Ghost of Tsushima? Because I've got a lot of pros.
Is Samurai Red Dead mixed with the, like, if you've ever played Infamous, your character magnetizes to all like climbing holds. It's Samurai Red Dead mixed with that.
So I didn't play through Infamous, but in Infamous, do they have like designated climb spots, or can you just climb on everything?
In Infamous, you can actually pretty much climb on everything.
Okay.
But that's because it's like, it's an urban environment, so there's just like pipes everywhere. So you're never wanting for a pipe to grab a hold of. But yeah, Ghost of Tsushima is about the Mongol invasion of Tsushima Island and you go to war and just murder everybody, and it's awesome.
It's a morality tale about what is more important, the honor of station in life or the honor of saving people who slowly become grateful.
The dumb moral conflict is not important to this game, Matthew.
I mean, clearly, as you play the game, the fact that there's no like good bad system in a game that's like, because I remember all of the lead up to this game was about like oh my god, like you can either play an honorable samurai or a silent assassin. No, that didn't happen at all.
Oh yeah, well it's funny because Infamous is like leans so hard into the good bad binary where it's like you can save this innocent civilian for good boy points, or you can murder them for bad guy points.
And better abilities.
Which is just bizarre, but you know, it worked for those games, I guess. It doesn't make sense in like a morality from a morality perspective, because it's like obviously shooting innocent civilians for no reason other than to level up your guy is immoral. But like it makes for some interesting gameplay, I'll say that.
Well, you can't even attack civilians in this, in Ghost of Tsushima.
So Ghost of Tsushima is like, it kind of has the same conflict set up in the story, where it's like, samurai have this rigid code of honor, which you can either abide by, or you can use like a lot of dirty tricks and like terrorism, essentially, to scare the crap out of the Mongols and defeat them. But you're not rewarded or penalized either way. It's like the shopping cart dilemma. It's like there is no reward for returning the shopping cart, but like you're a bad person if you don't.
In the real world, people look at you with a stink eye. In the game, your uncle looks at you with a stink eye.
Yeah, like there's no punishment for being a terrorist versus like a dumbass. Because because the dilemma is stupid. It's like you can either be an honorable samurai who runs face first into your enemy's sword and just dies constantly and doesn't accomplish anything, or you can be like a terrorist, which is dishonorable in the samurai, view, but like your country's being invaded, you have to force out the invaders. War is a morally compromising thing. You got to do what you got to do. So there's no like reward or punishment for going either way, and the story marches on regardless
of how you play. Yeah, at first I was kind of like, oh my god, the game designers and like the game media, they lied to me. I thought there would be a morality system, but in all honesty, I'm glad there isn't.
I'm glad there
is
no system either. Yeah,
this is almost like a big F you to all those games that are like, we're gonna make you feel bad for doing the bad thing. It's like, you know what? No, we have so many different gameplay systems going on that we want you to be able to experience them all without making you feel like a terrible person for doing so.
I know. Well, and what's interesting about this game versus like every other morality tale game is like the game encourages you and forces you to do like the terrorist stuff, like poison people,
it doesn't even
buildings.
force you. It doesn't even force you. It just does it. And then they're like, oh, by the way, you already did it.
You already did it. Yeah, it's part of the game. And then like applauds you for like being, it's like Ra's al Ghul, like, are you willing to do what is necessary to defeat evil? Like, it applauds you for doing the Ra's al Ghul thing and not the Batman thing.
It's the exact
like,
opposite.
Good job, you did what was necessary to win.
It was the opposite, because I was complaining about like some games that are like you have to do this thing. You're a terrible person for doing this thing. In this game, it's like, you have to do this thing. Look, all of these people are so glad you did that and saved their ass, except for this one guy over here.
I know. So, yeah, it's like Last of Us 2 is like, press square to shoot the dog.
That's right.
You press square, and then it's like, why did you shoot the dog, you horrible person?
Horrible asshole.
And then it's like, in this, it's like, press square to execute someone for treason, and then you execute them for treason, and they're like, well
Thank
done.
God.
They're like, it's like, well done. We know it's unpleasant, but it's necessary in a time of war. And it's like, wow, this is that was unexpected.
Oh, I'll say this, like, especially because my initial reaction to the game wasn't like amazing. I had a lot of issues with it, which we'll get into that, and also why my perspective changed. And like you brought up The Last of Us 2, I wonder if they like started rushing to get this out because like the sort of disdain that came from The Last of Us 2 was so huge that they're
100.
like, yeah, well, like, and this is almost like the complete opposite of that. It's an open world game where, you know, they don't really dabble in the morality of things. And even when they do, it's really at a surface level. It's really kind of lame. And like all of the gameplay system, like it's big. In some ways it's dumb. It's fun. And like it allows you to really like the way that it celebrates its violence is not in a way like in Grand Theft Auto, because like I said, you can't kill anyone unless the game says you can kill this person because they're bad. And I like that a lot. Like even if you try to attack someone who's just a normal person, the game will automatically like shift you a couple of degrees and you'll just fly right past them.
Yep.
So like as far as the game takes care of NPC relationships that way. So like this is like the most uncontroversial game they could release as like a sort of response to how divisive The Last of Us Part 2 was. It's like, okay, we need to get the taste out of their mouths, because you don't hear anyone talking about The Last of Us 2 anymore. And we still have people continually mentioning Ghost of Tsushima. I mean, we're mentioning it right now, months after it came out.
Yep. Well, it's... You said a lot of things.
I did. I tend to do that. But, I mean... So, the game is... It's an open world game, but it's not like... It's not pretending to be like a maximum freedom open world game. Like, all of your options as a player are consistent with the character. You know what I mean? Yeah.
And then secondly, it's, you know, it's not like it's not a choose your own adventure, multiple endings, you know, your morality meter affects what happens type of game either. It's just the story is the story, you play through it, that's it. That said, the game is a ton of fun. Yeah. I mean, the combat is amazing and addictive and is never not enjoyable.
Well...
Yes, Matthew. What I said is the truth.
I have any number of scenarios that I've played while playing this game that has caused nothing but annoying frustration.
Well, get good. I don't know what to tell you.
So how consistent is that timing for doing a perfect parry? Oh, it's not consistent at all.
I did plenty of perfect parries. What are you talking about?
I did plenty, and I've had plenty where he's like attempting to parry and doesn't. And there's been plenty more where I'm pretty sure I'm in the window, and all of a sudden I take damage.
I don't think I've ever had him take damage. I've just had it do like a not perfect parry. It just parries normally.
It's the Just Defend from Guru Mark of Wolves.
What?
I know. I just went super obscure there. And moving on. I mean, lucky for you, you didn't have to have one character on a different platform than you, and you try to attack them, because you can't. You can't do that.
You shoot him with an arrow.
Not when they're right next to you. Why would I shoot him with an arrow? I want to hack them.
But they're on a different platform.
I know. I should still be able to attack them. This is not Star Wars Episode 3. I don't care if Obi-Wan Mongol Kenobi has the higher ground. I should be able to take out his feet. Anyway. Oh, ninja dogs. Terrible idea.
They're annoying. That's true.
They're annoying. But I digress. The combat overall is incredibly fun, and it's incredibly visceral. Yes.
The environment's very fun to explore. You know, I like how they give all the different regions each their own flavor, although the last region is pretty monotonous. There's just like a burned forest and then snow.
And it's not even the cool, like, Death Stranding snow.
No.
It's just like snow.
Just
There's
snow.
no peeing in this snow.
But like, you know, every environment has its, or every region has its own kind of unique flavor, and dude, the game is so well optimized because it's like,
Yeah.
there's the amount of stuff they're able to fit on screen. The environments are really well fleshed out and very detailed. All of the grass and like so much processing power goes into like individual leaves and blades of grass blowing in the wind and flower petals and stuff. It's awesome.
The particle, like they understand how amazing their particle engine is because the photo mode is all about that particle engine, and they show particles anytime they can. Like, especially when you get into the multiplayer, because like your sword can have special particle mechanisms for it.
Yeah.
Like the amount of leaves, like you said, the particles.
Well, on top of that, like, I mean, the map is pretty big, but the draw distance is massive. Like, you can see
insane.
clear. It's insane. You can see clear to the other side of the map.
They take advantage of it too. Yeah, they're like, hey, look at this. Like, they'll give you a paper map, and you look over, and you can see, oh, that's the building I need to see, and this is the thing here. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they do take advantage of the draw distance well, especially in like the legendary missions where you have to like, they give you a paper map, and it's like, okay, here's like a crappy drawing of a landmark. But then you can see like several kilometers into the distance. It's like, oh, there's a landmark that kind of looks like this crappy drawing. Mm-hmm. And then it's also well optimized in terms of like using its data efficiently. Like it saves very quickly. It loads very quickly. The entire world of the game is one place. You know what I mean? Like, you don't load going from region to region. There's no load time going indoors to outdoors. Everything is accessible all at once. The whole thing exists at the same time, which is amazing. I think it might be the first open world game, or like big AAA open world game I've played where you don't have to load walking into a building, and you can walk into every building, or almost every building. Just the pagodas you can't go into.
Some of those. A lot of them you can, though. A lot of like the churches and stuff. I mean, the only other one I would think of is Death Stranding and Yakuza, but
yeah.
But no,
Death Stranding doesn't have that many buildings.
It doesn't. But I mean, like, if we're talking about that, and even then, like, Death Stranding in general has, if I'm not mistaken, Death Stranding has some pretty long load times.
Yeah.
I mean, okay, like.
But like in this game, you fast travel from point to point. It's like, boom, you're there.
Yeah, that's the other thing. Is like when you fast travel, it doesn't take long to load. It's very fast.
It's really fast. Yeah. I also like how all of the, there's like the Assassin's Creed and Ubisoft introduced the like collectible shitfest where it's like, your map is covered with either gray icons that turn to white when you visit or complete them, or white icons that turn to gray when you visit or complete them. And it's all like really innocuous, ticky-tacky stuff. This game has that, but it incorporates it into the world very cleverly, where it's like, they're all integrated really well into the environment, and then the way you stumble upon them feels very organic.
Yeah.
And it does it in a way that, at least for me, like made me want to roam around and actively seek these things out, as opposed to being like, oh shit, I have to, climb 237 more tall things and jump into a bale of hay. Oh boy. Like, instead of that, it actually is like, oh, I actually want to go and look for landmarks and complete objectives and things like that.
Yeah.
Because they feel like part of roaming around, and they feel like part of the environment, and they feel spontaneous.
Yeah, I'll say I felt like that until about two-thirds. I don't want to say two-thirds. I felt like that about halfway through the second act, and then it started, like, a lot of my personal issues with the storytelling in the game and the side quests started to kind of grate on me for a couple of different reasons via the in-game progression. But the last act, luckily, like, unlike Death Stranding, where the last act, or like the last major section where you're finding places, took forever, in this, the last major act, which takes place in the snowy field, didn't feel long in the tooth. It was very, very tight. But yeah, and I agree with you. The game almost encourages you to do anything but the main quest for a lot of stretches of the game, which I like.
Yeah.
I liked it until I didn't like it. But then, luckily, because it's optional, you don't have to do it.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so you're still. I feel like when it comes to video games, I'm a lot more critical than you.
It's because if there's a video game that I'm even a little bit critical about, I usually don't play it.
Mm-hmm.
Like, if I don't really enjoy playing a video game, I almost don't play it at all. Like, I tried playing the God of War game, the new one, and it's pretty good, but I didn't love it, so I pretty much just stopped after maybe like 10 hours.
Yeah. That's another interesting thing, because I think a lot of people have said, the writing of Daddy God of War is like really good. It's like, oh, the story is so compelling, and the one shot of the game is like, oh, it's amazing. And I was like, you know what though? Like, yes, it kind of looks cool, but fuck it, I'll take Ghost of Tsushima over it, because it hits because the arcade action isn't, or sorry, the arcade action, the action in the game isn't that arcadey, but it feels very arcadey in some ways, in a way that I like a lot.
Well, it's the right mix of arcadey and like visceral and modern, you know, because it is pretty arcadey, but like in the best way.
Yeah. Like, I even to the point of like, because I know the Spider-Man game, one of the reviews I was reading was like, yeah, but all of the way you fight enemies, the way you fight enemies in the new Spider-Man game, and it's the same in this game, is like, if you slash something, you're only really slashing one opponent. You can sometimes trick the game into slashing two. And so like every time you kill an opponent, it's this like context sensitive animation. Yeah. And so like, because of that, you're not really chopping down like two at the same time, because you're not dealing with hitboxes, you're dealing with animations and timing loopings and things like that. And like some people take criticism with that. I don't have a huge problem with that, because like Assassin's Creed 2 does that. So it's like we're all, a lot of us are kind of already used to that kind of a feel to the game. If you've played Assassin's Creed 2, which, you played through, I think, and I, played through that one as well. But like, even with that, because of the way the animations work in the game, it feels very visceral. Like, it helps to add to the feel of the game a lot. The fact that you kill enemies like that.
I mean, one thing I've noticed is that with a lot of games, the more arcadey the combat is, the more solid it feels, for lack of a better word.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Like,
it makes sense.
Like, you push a particular button and it produces a very predictable particular result. Whereas the more modern combat seems to be, the more it's like animations aren't as locked together. So it's like you press like swing your sword, you're just sort of like flailing, and you hope that your hitbox is near enough to the enemy's hitbox that it does something. And that it's fine, but it can kind of sometimes create a very floaty feel to the combat, which can either take away from the visceral quality of it, where you're just kind of, you're just waving a stick at an object, and sometimes there's red spilling out for blood, and then the other object falls over. And it can also lead to frustration when it's like the hitboxes start glitching. But there's more freedom in it.
Right.
So that's the trade-off. Yeah. And I think Ghost of Tsushima does a really good job of sort of balancing that, where, there is a lot of freedom in how you move around and how you use your tools and attacks, but like, things do get programmed into appropriate locked-in animations, so that when you do something, it's like, oh yeah, this feels like, it feels solid, like you're making a real connection when you swing your sword, or like it's an impactful combat move, as opposed to, like I said, just waving a stick and hoping the hitboxes line up.
So do you have any criticisms of the game?
Oh yeah, story is not good. English voice acting really bad. And characters' faces are all very Like they're very Oblivion looking.
They're very not good.
Very not good.
The main Mongol looks like Benedict Wong. That's what
He does.
But I love Benedict Wong, so I was okay with that. Like
So I guess.
Yeah, go ahead.
I was saying we could maybe go point by point, I suppose. English voice acting, it's
Switch
weird
it to Japanese.
because just play the game in Japanese. You'll like it a lot more.
It's
Trust
so much
me on
better
it.
in Japanese. Also, a lot of the things that make it feel like a Western game recede as soon as you change it to Japanese voices.
Oh yeah, well, because it's weird when everyone is speaking in English, but they're kind of doing it in like a half American, half English accent.
Yeah.
Where it's like, I don't know if this is like I don't know what they're going for here, because like you're kind of speaking in an American accent, but when you say Japanese words, you do like a quasi-Japanese pronunciation, and then also there's a bit of like slightly offensive English talking.
Yeah, and it's not like they got a bunch of Japanese Americans to do the voices. It's just all over the map. It's like some of them are Japanese Americans, some of them are Chinese Americans, some of them are probably just Caucasian. It's just like all over the map.
Well, and then it's like when the main character, Jin Sakai, argues with his uncle, Lord Shimura, about like honor and the samurai code, it sounds extra special stupid in English. But in Japanese, it works. And the other thing, too, it's like, this is more an issue for Jin, the main character. His voice isn't that... It doesn't have a whole lot of gravity to it in the English version. It's just like... He just sounds like some guy. But in the Japanese audio, you know, he sounds like typical Japanese main character, where he's got like a super deep, like very commanding and powerful sounding voice, and you're like, okay, yeah, this works. This is better. And it's just like dudes arguing about archaic samurai Bushido bullshit is a lot more compelling in Japanese than it is in English.
It just seems like, and again, to a lot of like what the game is going for anyway, it just seems like one of those things that you should be reading about as people are saying it on screen than watching two American voice actors say it. Like, it just feels it feels wrong to just watch these like kind of cliche stereotype Saturday morning cartoon characters with their English dub on. It's like, no, switch to the Japanese. Switch to the Japanese.
Well,
dub.
it's funny because like the game is actually in English, so if it's in Japanese, it's not only subbed, it's also dubbed. You're watching the dubbed and subbed.
Yep, because the lip syncing is off. They do their best, but the lip syncing is off.
Yeah. And I think the only thing that kind of sucks about playing the game in Japanese, well, there's two things. One, a lot of you kind of mentioned this over the phone once, but the kind of the walk and talk, like in Red Dead, where you and another character are on horseback riding to the location of the mission and talking. It's a lot harder to appreciate the amazing environment that the developers have built and artists have built when you're trying to read the subtitles of what they're talking about. But also, I like Sensei Ishikawa's English voice better than his Japanese voice.
Yeah, he reminded me of the, because I've heard the English voice actor, and the English voice actor reminded me of, like, the actor that Ishikawa was based off of, he sounds like him. Like, I don't know why, just, like, the English voice for Ishikawa matched perfectly to me. But yeah, I want to say he's the guy from Iron Chef, but...
Wait, the original Iron Chef, or
the guy who's in John Wick Chapter 3? Oh,
the Greek dude. Or he's not Greek, but he has a very Greek-looking name.
Yeah. You can look it up. I'm not gonna look it up. But
the host of Iron Chef America.
Yes, the host of Iron Chef America, who like had the fan of John Wick and John Wick 3, the bald guy. Like that's who he reminded me of. Yeah. So the voice acting, in fact, like the English voice acting is probably the worst part of all the sound design, because
the rest of the sound design's great.
The rest of the sound design isn't great, dude. The rest of the sound design is freaking perfect. There's like the one thing I will say, even when I wasn't thrilled about the game in the beginning, is the sound design was always spot on except for the English voice cast. There's not a single sound effect in the game that isn't like perfectly tuned. Like the sound of sheathing your sword is awesome.
Yeah, well, it's like all of the sound effects are really well done, and then the way it's mixed is brilliant. Like you have to play this game with either really good speakers or a headset, and I have really good speakers, but I switched to a headset because my PlayStation fan would get so loud playing this that I couldn't hear anything. Or like I would have to crank the volume to the point where it would annoy other members of my household. So yeah, I switched to a headset, and it's like just the wind and the trees and the grass and the birds and all the animals. I mean, there's not a ton of animals in the game, but what animals there are, like all of that is so just beautiful to listen to. It's all mixed perfectly. And the mix comes in a lot in combat because, you know, there's no lock on, but you have to kind of, because it is kind of arcadey, like it's this bizarre in between of freely swinging and locking on. So it's like you gotta be facing your target, and you gotta be aware of where your enemies are. And the sound is what does that for you. Like you listen to where attacks are coming from, and that's how you know who to block, who to parry, where to dodge, where to look.
I will say the combat reaction timing is not as fine-tuned as like the Batman Arkham games.
Well, but the Arkham games are super locked on.
But it's also like even in this, yeah. So like I think that was one of my issues, was like there are certain things about the combat that I wish it was a little bit more like the Arkham games, which clearly the combat was taking inspiration from.
Yeah.
But go on about how detailed the sound work is, because that's my thing. Is like I love how much detail they put into it.
Oh yeah, it's incredible, and it's like, you know, when you're doing stealth stuff, just like the sound of you going through grass and mixed with like enemy footsteps and chatter, it's great. Like it's a sign of really great sound design when the sound is intentionally incorporated into the gameplay. Like you have to listen for birds, you know, when you're trying to find landmarks. You have to listen for footsteps and sword swings when you're fighting multiple enemies at the same time.
Yosha!
Yeah, arrows, all that stuff. And then on top of that, it works. Like that was their intent, and they executed on it.
Yep. Also with sound design, like it's so hyper detailed. Like I said, the sword swings sound excellent. All of the individual sounds sound great. Special standout is also the death rattle that people make. Oh my god, it's so juicy. Like you can hear the blood shoot up their throat as they're gargling it to death. Yep. And then the other thing is, which I'm sure we'll make more mention of, a nice touch was in Kurosawa mode, which generally speaking is sort of like, it seems like it's the bare minimum they could do. The sound designers actually put a filter on it so that all of the sound comes out in what sounds like uncompressed monolar mix. So while the rest of the mode is sort of like a little bit distracting, that was the one moment that I was like, yep, the sound designers got it perfect. Like even I love the music of the game too. Like the main theme of the music is amazing. So the sound for me is like the best thing about this game is its sound designers and its sound mixers.
It's definitely a highlight.
Yeah. Sorry to derail you on that one. What were your other? You had another complaint about story.
Oh yeah, so the story is blah. Like it's you know, like Mongols invade, fight them back, capture the castle. Oh, they've retreated to another castle. clear the new open world region, capture the castle. Oh, they've retreated to another castle. Clear the open, like that's all fine. Like that's pretty boilerplate video game story stuff.
Yeah.
But the characters and the larger conflict over like which is better, like archaic, dumb Bushido bullshit morality, or like, hey, sometimes war is difficult and we have to do like difficult things in order to save people's lives. Like that conflict is so stupid that like, you know, the side the main character's on is so obviously correct versus Lord Shimura, who has his head completely planted inside of his ass. It's just like, it doesn't even feel like a conflict. It's just annoying how dumb he is.
Yeah. The writers,
I think like
Go ahead.
Oh, I was gonna say like, so I mean that was just hugely irritating. But I think like there's a lot of smaller stuff in the story that I think works really well. Like I liked like Taka and his whole involvement. I thought was done really well. I think some of the Sensei Ishikawa's whole story arc is pretty good for the most part until the end when he just kind of like he's like, oh whatever, Mike.
It's fine.
It's fine. Who cares?
She's not really that bad, is she?
Yeah. So for those of you who either haven't played the game or haven't played Sensei Ishikawa's portion of it, this is spoilers for that. Ishikawa is this master archer who was a samurai for some noble family, and then he was sort of disbarred from his position because he trained a young man who tried to overthrow his father. The young man was stopped and you know executed, and they're like, Ishikawa, your shit-headed teachings have led him astray. You're fired. So he lives in the woods and ends up so he lives in the woods and ended up training this woman who's a thief in the way of the bow because she's really gifted. But she's, you know, she comes from a rough background and is like not above, you know, like killing and stealing to survive, and has that sort of ingrained in her. And she ends up being like essentially just this monstrous killer who he then makes even more powerful by teaching her how to kill better. And then she joins the Mongols and teaches them how to murder people. And you come across all these like grisly executions and stuff. And he's like, you know, I've made a monster. We have to stop her. And then at the end, like, you meet up with her and she helps you defeat some Mongols, and then you just let her go. And Ishikawa's like, you know, I guess she wasn't so bad after all. And it's like, what are you talking about? Like, she killed all of those innocent people. Like,
we all learned a valuable lesson.
I know. So, like his stuff was really good up until that part where you're like, what? And I feel like every side character has a pretty good story arc until at some point it jumps the shark and you're just like, what the fuck? Like for Ishikawa, it's that where he just decides to let Tomoe go.
That's right. That was her name, Tomoe.
Huh?
I forgot what her name was. I was going to say Mariko? No.
Yeah, so he lets Tomoe go, and it's like, really, man? Like, this is a very compelling story, and she's also like a mad dog who probably needs to be put down. And he's like, nah, like, yeah, I take back everything I said about how she's a mad dog that needs to be put down. I forgive her for, like, butchering hundreds of innocent civilians.
Well, they have that throwaway line where she's like, well, I was the Mongols forced... I keep wanting to call them mongrels, but the Mongols forced me to train
Whoa, Matthew. I know you're racist, but you can't be openly racist on the show.
That's true. I can only be subliminally racist, apparently. I was kind of happy that she didn't die because, like, I think they were building up this whole idea of like maybe Ishikawa's not good actually, but it was like no, they just no. He's just gonna let her go.
He's not like a great person.
No, he's not.
But, you know, he's not, like, a murderer either.
Well, he's not, like, you know, a mass murderer. Although,
Yeah.
well, you can make the argument that he is because he fought in wars and stuff, but then that's
he's a soldier.
Yes.
He's a cantankerous old soldier who, you know, really badly wants to have like a child to carry his legacy. So he goes easy on Tomoe, or perhaps too hard on Tomoe, and kind of turns her into.
We don't really know.
We don't really know. And then she's like, "Oh, I only did those monstrous things because they were a better alternative to some other monstrous thing, or the Mongols made me, or whatever." It's like, there's no evidence of this. We're just supposed to take you at your word after you've been trying to kill us for like 8 side quests now.
Yeah, yeah. It was a little Bly-Mannery.
Oh, ultra Bly-Mannery. It's just, I hate storytelling where it's like, oh, actually all those things you thought about me were wrong because I'm telling you they're wrong and you have no evidence. And it's like,
yeah, don't you remember back in chapter 1, didn't you see that the people had died by headshots and not by body shots? Chapter 1? You mean the thing that happened like 50 hours ago? No!
No. Yeah, it's like, why am I supposed to take you at your word? You're the bad guy. Like, prove me wrong. Don't just say that I'm wrong. So I always hate storytelling like that, where a throwaway line is supposed to like change your perspective on the whole story. It's like, but that doesn't work like that. You need proof. So yeah,
we're
his
not allowed
story
to kill
kind of jumps...
women in this game, apparently.
No, you kill women in this game.
I don't think so.
None
on screen. Like they black out before you kill one of them.
Do they? What about the Dance of Wrath mission? Don't you kill a woman to get that?
Do you? I don't remember.
Yeah, because you use the Dance of Wrath to like carve up some lady.
Oh, okay. Oh yeah, I think so. Yeah, I think so. That's right. I think she's the only one though. Everyone else, like if you kill them, it's like a fade to black, or like someone else does, or like they kill themselves because Japanese culture.
I guess.
But anyway,
but yeah. So Sensei Ishikawa's storyline is kind of falters there. Lady Masako's storyline falters when she gets so crazy. She just starts trying to kill Jin, and you have a duel. Like that looks amazing. Like it's in front of like a flaming building, but. It's like, why am I fighting an old woman? This makes no fucking sense. And then the twist at the end that it was like her sister that engineered the whole thing just comes out of nowhere. Because like
I liked that. That felt very appropriate to me, that it was like
but
someone.
It doesn't fit with the earlier quest you do where you. Like, you find Lady Masako's, I guess, lover, who is also a servant, and there's all these, like, weird letters that maybe imply that, like, the person behind the assassination plot that affected her family is, like, in love with her. And then it's like, wait, it's her sister? That doesn't make any sense.
JK lol.
And then her sister just, like, dies. She's like, you've taken everything from me, so now I'm gonna kill myself. And it's like, cool story, bro. So yeah, like Masako's storyline is really engaging and interesting until like the last 2, where she just goes nuts and tries to kill you, and then you confront her sister, and it's like the most anticlimactic confrontation ever.
I trade dueling one old woman for just watching another one wither away.
I know.
Hashtag video game storytelling.
Who else's storyline gets all weird? Norio's storyline is really good until he's like, I have to find the man who like tortured and mutilated my brother. And then
which
like
was super Takeshi Miike.
I know.
Did you see like the body there rattling? I was like, oh my god, this is awesome.
Oh yeah, it was crazy. But then like the end of his story is you fall asleep and he sets a fort on fire, and all these monks are like, Norio's crazy. He's burning everyone. And then it's like, wait, is he burning like civilians or just enemy soldiers? Because like they're very shaky about this. And then he's like, yes, I burned him alive and I loved every second of it. And it's like, whoa, that's dark, man. But it's weird that I was asleep for the whole
women
thing.
and the children.
I know, but you don't know. It's like there's dead bodies that look like they could maybe be monks, but I'm not sure. And then Jin's like, it's cool, man. We all do things when we're pissed. And you're like, wait, what? He was just like, he just had a full like Anakin Skywalker, like not just the women and not just the men, but the women and children too, or maybe not. I don't know. The game's not clear about it. I hate them. And then he's just like, oh, we all do crazy things when we're mad. It's okay, man. Just go back to being a monk. And Norio's like,
we all learned a very special lesson.
I'll go back to being a monk. Also, it was weird that you were asleep for all of this. And the entire mission is just Jin was asleep for the events of the mission. But at least you get an XP boost at the end.
No, I didn't. I was maxed out at that point. I maxed out halfway through the game.
Well, I got an XP boost, Matthew.
Oh, I see.
But yeah, so like all of their individual stories are good up until the very end, and then there's like a weird what the fuck moment where you're like, this broke the engagement a little bit.
We had to tell mature storytelling. You mean bad storytelling? Exactly.
Bad
More boobies. What?
Let's see. What else? What other bad stories were there? Like a lot of the random side quests were pretty good. Like I like the one where you go through the haunted forest. I thought that was fun.
That was cool. That was cool. So I do have some notes on the story. One, I did not care about Taka at all. I know a lot of people who did. I know Mike got really emotional when Taka died. Not like emotional like me when I'm like Bly Manor, but
Bly Manor.
It wasn't Bly Manor in that way, but like Mike was like, no, Taka. When that happened to Taka, I was like, it's happening already? Like, wow, I feel like I don't have any connection to this guy who is just like, I want to do what my sister does. So, like, I didn't really...
Well, it's like, you know he's going to die at some point.
I mean, I did because I watched Mike play.
Oh.
But, like, yeah, like, someone has to go. And it's probably not going to be the super ruthless, efficient, like, female character who helped you out, Yuna. Like, it's not going to be her. It's probably going to be Taka because they have to have some way of, like, increasing Jin's emotional revenge and not doing it by him getting raped like a pig. Well, I was just thinking about it. I was like, well, how could they make it even more personal? It's like, oh, by killing this person who gave you a grappling hook and then having that sentimental moment where they give you better armor. I didn't care about Taka. I thought it was useful, but he didn't even repair your sword. Like, he's a great blacksmith. Just give me the max sword then.
Well, it's like you kill the nice, well-meaning but kind of naive guy brutally.
Yes. Because in our grim, dark, mature story tale, no good and mercy can survive until the end. So the one thing that, like, I guess is supposed to be one of the cruxes of the story is this idea of, like, Jin was a coward at his dad's death, and so he's been fighting up until the beginning of the story to like regain honor, because his great shame was watching his dad die like a little bitch. Speaking of being a little bitch,
even though he was like 10.
Yeah, he was 10. Okay, I still have problems with this though, but anyway, so like a lot of the story, they're like, oh, you have to be honorable in your fights, you can't be a coward. And so, like, okay, I get that. Like, the way he watched his dad die in the Japanese society that they're portraying in the game makes him look like a coward and disgraceful, and he doesn't feel like he's earned his spot as the leader of the Sakai clan. Which, you know, spoilers, by the end of the game, he's not the head of the Sakai clan. So I guess it doesn't mean anything ever, and we live in a society or some shit like that. But like, so he has to come to terms with that when he's assassinating people, which is, you know, Jin, you're being a coward. But I'm fine with that.
One bit of explanation that may help.
Go ahead.
Is the samurai code of honor is like you always look your enemy in the eye when you kill them. Like you never stab them in the back.
Yeah.
Stabbing them in the back is cowardly. Assassinations are cowardly. Ninja shit is cowardly.
I have this like vision in my head of like him stabbing him and then turning the head quickly so he can like stare in his eyes like, watch as you die! Like, I will regain honor! And like pull the knife out of his... Now with that said...
Yeah, he feels like a coward because he watched his dad die.
Yes.
So he kind of has this compulsion to follow Shimura's samurai code of honor, which is like always charge face first into your enemy's sword. You know, don't
Right.
don't be smart, because being
You have
smart
an army,
is cowardly.
let them die. Let your army die by the better projectiles that the enemy has.
Exactly.
You must play
So
by
then-
your rules and not by theirs. Yeah.
So then, you know, part of the story is the Khotan Khan, the Mongol leader, is able to just
Benedict Wong.
troll the samurai endlessly because their code of honor is very limiting, and he can basically just play them like a fiddle.
Right.
So Jin has to wrestle with embracing a more quote-unquote cowardly way of fighting by sneaking around, you know, assassinating people, committing acts of terrorism that are
Yes.
that are undoubtedly way more effective than the shit he was doing before, but it goes against the code of honor of his uncle, who he worships as like a father figure.
Right. And they have a very cliche, like a super writery moment where they're like, oh, this is the best, when like you're about to wage, you know, a massive battle to get back Castle Shimura, and he takes you aside and is like, Jin, the son I never had, who is always fighting honorably and never does anything cold or calculated, the embodiment of the samurai. I want to, the shogun will let me formally adopt you as my son. Preceded by you, like, poisoning the Mongol army and going counter to everything. They're like, isn't this dramatic, guys? We didn't code this at all. It's like, no, we saw the setup coming a mile away. We knew this was going to happen.
You haven't even brought up the worst part of the story, though.
I wonder if it's the thing I was about to comment on, but what is it?
Ryuzo.
No, we'll talk about that in a second. So, hold on, I need to take a note here. Jin's character, because it needs to be addressed, and Ryuzo. All right, so there's a moment. Did you do all of the poison mini with that one like old woman? Did you do all of those missions? Okay.
Yeah, Jin learns how to poison people from his nanny, who also had an affair with his dad, and like confuses him with his dad and starts hitting on him in the creepiest way possible because she's senile.
Creepy or sexy?
Just more like
It's
sad
super
and
creepy.
gross.
It's so gross. It's super, and Jin's like playing along too, like, yes, you were beautiful that one time that we went to the hot springs, and
You were beautiful that one time that my dad apparently cheated on my mom with you.
I'm so well. So like in those moments, like she basically reveals that that his father would be proud of what Jin is doing, because the father believed in, kind of like in Kingdom of Heaven, it's like, we must protect the people. It's like, okay, so the father is fine with what Jin is doing, but it makes the fact that Jin let his father die like a little bitch even more depressing.
I know.
In a way,
and
I
then...
don't think that they wanted to be, because they never really reference back to like Jin completely abandoning his father, which is like, because like the rest of the time after Jin finds that out, he's like, oh, I might be my father's man, which also then undermines everything else he does with Shimura. So like the two major points are like, the way that his father died is bad in like a storytelling perspective, in that like this moment that's supposed to be really satisfying is undermined, and Shimura's entire arc with Jin is undermined because guess what? His father would have been proud of him anyway. So it makes
that's a weird thing
else.
too, because it's like, his dad is. I mean, it's very briefly mentioned, but his real father, not his surrogate father, is a similarly like brutal total war kind of guy, but his whole ideology is like, we have to protect our people as much as possible. Like, we have to be willing to do anything and everything, no matter how, crazy or morally questionable, because at the end of the day, like, innocent lives are at stake.
Yeah, and times change.
Yeah. And then Shimura's like, no, I have to kill as many of my own soldiers as possible.
They will die
charging
an
this
honorable
bridge
death with Amaterasu.
I have to charge this bridge that's rigged with explosives because honor.
It's like Billy Boyd comes up and he starts singing. It's like as he's charging forward, just like Jin pulls out his flute and starts playing.
It's just like the moral conflict of the story is so nonsensical. It's so not captivating.
Yeah, it's totally undermined by a bunch of
things. I mentioned on another show, the most interesting story you can tell is a morality tale about how far is a good person willing to go when they're pressed, right? When they're under pressure.
Yeah.
And like this game tries to do it. The problem is like it's framed in a weird way where like the quote unquote humane side isn't very humane. So going really far to do what is necessary is never seen as a bad thing, or never feels like a bad thing.
Yeah.
It's like what Rogue One could have been, where it's like, oh, like what kind of horrible shit are you willing to do to get these Death Star plans? I mean, the movie never touches on that, but
right.
The very first trailer attempted to.
Yeah.
So yeah, this game is kind of like
literally. Oh my god!
Jin, like, what will you do when they catch you?
Because they're both named Jin.
When they break you, if you continue to fight, what will you become? It's literally that. Like, it's what will you become? You know, if you go all the way. You know, if you do everything that you have to do to win this war, what will you become? And the answer is like nothing. He's still the same guy. Lord Shimura is just a dipshit.
Like, if anything, what will you become? Apparently popular with everyone. Because everyone fucking loves you at the end of the game, except for Lord Shimura and the Shogun.
Yeah, he's like Jin Sakai is like captain of the football team by the end of the game, and then Lord Shimura is like this butthurt nerd. It's so weird.
Ghost of Tsushima, following the exact story arc of Varsity Blues. But like, yeah, like I was just thinking about Rogue One, and I was like, you know, what this game needed? It needed Kodun Khan being played by Forrest Whitaker. Yeah.
Also, Kodun Khan's English voice acting is actually really good as well.
Yeah, he's good. He's good too. It's weird. It's like the worst person is probably Jin, but that's like kind of uniformly throughout the game. The worst person is Jin, because like, okay, so the game, like, they have the Kurosawa mode, so obviously the game is like really wants to be inspired by Kurosawa's films, which it's very much, to me, not.
No, it's not. It's
inspired
by Red Dead and other Sucker Punch games.
Well, it's also inspired by the generic genre of 60s samurai films, because like there's like a lot of the elements of it, of like him cutting them down, feels like it's out of something like The Sword of Doom or like Three Outlaw Samurai. Like, it's very stylized in a way that Kurosawa's films are not. Jin's character would have been perfect if he were just some sort of like bland vessel who did not have any morality, because the best thing about the side missions is that he's kind of like going along for the ride and acting like Socrates, just like challenging whoever story you're doing, challenging their preconceived notions. Like, you know, you'll be with Ishikawa and he's like, I must kill Tomo, and then you'll have this option to be like, you trained her, shouldn't you know all, like, you know, like, you trained her to be this horrible killer, doesn't the blame fall on you? And like that, like, as a vessel of sort of like having a very strong personality that drives it forward and not constantly going back and forth questioning, makes the story missions kind of a drag, but it makes the side missions, when he's just like a vessel for other people to play off of, really interesting. And so I would have liked less of the sort of like really cheesy Kenneth Branagh like monologuing about, oh, am I being a coward, or am I being, you know, or am I doing good? Like, I don't need that in my main character. I think that's what kind of pulls it down, is like, he's not particularly interesting, and if you're going to make him not particularly interesting, do something like...
What is that noise in the background?
I was rubbing my laptop.
Oh, it's really loud.
This here?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah,
that's really loud.
Okay, it's because it's right by my computer's speaker, because I forget that I'm talking to you. Like, I'm talking right into my microphone, but I forget that you're listening to me through the microphone on my computer.
I was like, I really hope that doesn't come through on the podcast. On the final edit.
It'll be weird. There's going to just be this moment like, why is Matt rubbing his laptop? There's like some spittle on it, and I was like, I need to get it off.
I was just like I really hope it doesn't sound like you're cleaning something. like it's like, what do you think of? Hey Matt, what do you think about this aspect of Ghost of Tsushima? And just like cleaning noises on the other end.
But yeah, I just found Jin's character really annoying throughout most of the game.
His character's fine. I don't like Lord Shimura at all. He's not a good foil for Jin. He's annoying. His weird facial expression is annoying, which may just have to do with... So the other of the three major flaws of this game,
yes.
English voice acting, story, the third and final is character models. They do not look great. I mean, character models have always been the worst part of Sucker Punch games, at least going back to Infamous. I mean, Sly Cooper had good character models because they're all cartoon animals.
Right.
But like Infamous, you know, everyone looks pretty like generic and undetailed relative to the environment. The environment always has way more detail than the people.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone's face seems like a texture sort of plastered on an object, and like when they talk, they move weird, their mouths move weird. Obviously they've cleaned up the animations a lot for Ghost of Tsushima, but even then, like, their faces they're weirdly lacking in detail relative to a lot of the environment. And then they also just, a lot of folks look just kind of strange, you know? Like, Yuna, I can't tell if she's like 25 or 55. I don't know how old she is, and that weirds me out. Jin on the cover of the game looks really cool. In the game, he looks like a potato.
I was gonna say he looks super derpy, but yeah,
super derpy.
Potato's a better analogy. Yeah, it's just kind of like
Lord Shimura looks like he always looks like he just bit into a lemon and can only move his lower lip. You know?
Yeah. Yeah, I know. Like, Koten Khan looks good. Ishikawa's character model looks good.
Yeah.
Masako's character model's okay. But yeah,
and that's it.
I agree with you for the most part. I will say this. I would rather the character models not look as good and the environments look really good and the animations be really good and the game be really stable. Like,
yeah.
I don't need to see every single, pimple on Jin Sakai's face, you know?
Yeah,
like,
but
I'm okay.
That's the trade-off you make, though, is like, yes, the game plays really well and for the most part looks really good because most of the game you're not looking at people's faces.
Yeah.
So everything's great because they allocated resources away from faces and character models.
Yeah.
However, it doesn't help the story or the voice performances when characters' faces are ultra weird looking.
They all look like they had too much Botox and can't move their mouth properly.
Yeah.
I will say,
and it doesn't help Lord Shimura be any less annoying when his lower lip is the only thing on his face that moves.
Yeah, so at least with Jin, you can cover his face up with a mask.
Yeah, which I did for most of the game.
You can literally put just like a giant basket over it, which is the closest we'll get to putting a bag on it. It also, like, it's kind of unfortunate because the game shows you a lot of the artists who worked in 2D on designing the characters. When you go and look over like Yuna's story and you can see a picture of Yuna and you're like, oh, yeah, that's what they wanted Yuna to look like, and not, like she had gotten stung by 50 bees.
Yeah, it's like this. Yeah, it's funny because you have like a cool Metal Gear Solid watercolor of like Yuna. It's like, oh, okay, she looks like kind of a normal Japanese, slightly frumpy Japanese woman, and then yeah, her face in the actual game is stung by 50 bees is a pretty good description.
It's really bad. Like, to the point where I was just like, why is this ugly character helping me? And I don't think they intended her to look ugly based off of the art that's in the game. Or like with Jin's picture in like the Jin's Quest thing, like okay, he looks cool. And then you see him in game, and you're like, where was the disconnect?
I know, they don't look remotely alike.
No, not. It's really strange. Like, and again, but I'm okay with that, except all of the cutscenes are the most boring shot reverse shot of characters talking to each other that you can't skip.
Mm-hmm.
And so it makes it even more obvious to notice it. Ugh.
Yep. Well, is now a good time to talk about Ryuzo?
Yeah, I was actually speaking of characters with ugly faces and no real point, let's talk about Ryuzo.
It's because Ryuzo's easy to forget about because he's so forgettable.
Yeah. Oh, the game definitely does not think he's useless, forgettable, or inconsequential, though.
The game thinks he's really important and then forgets about him, is the problem.
Well, you don't see him for a full act because you kill him.
Like the game, he's very important to the synopsis of the story, but the game itself doesn't care about him.
Nope.
Yeah, because it's like Ryuzo is a Ronin who is a very talented soldier and sword fighter who never
according to the story, he's very
according
talented.
to the story. He never
not a little bitch like when I played him.
I know. He never made it as a samurai because there's like this whole class issue where like samurai are a class, and if you're not born into it, it's very hard to become one. And his various chances of becoming one were sabotaged in one way or another, so he's very bitter about it. And he leads this band of Ronin who are constantly starving because I guess they suck at their job. And eventually he joins up with the Mongols because they promise him food. And he has like this resentment towards Jin because he believes that Jin is privileged, being born into a wealthy family, born into the samurai class, where Ryuzo had to work for it, and various, like I said, various attempts to become samurai and become wealthy have been, have failed in one way or another, partly because of Jin.
Right. Specifically, Jin beat him in a duel where Ryuzo had staked everything on and Jin had staked nothing on, and that duel proved to be the last straw where Ryuzo could become a samurai.
Yeah, exactly.
Also, don't forget that Ryuzo and Jin are apparently best buddies back in the day.
Yeah, they're also apparently best buddies from back in the day, even though they act like they don't know each other.
You don't get that at all in the dialogue.
You don't get that feeling at all.
Jin might want to be his buddy, but
So yeah, Ryuzo joins up with the Mongols, starts viciously murdering innocent people while also being like a total scaredy cat in the weirdest turn of events possible. And then just kind of disappears from the story until he shows up randomly in a castle and fights Jin, and Jin kills him. And it's like, well, that was stupid. Ryuzo sucks. But yeah, your turn.
So the game fails with Ryuzo because they want to build the relationship between Ryuzo and Jin to be some sort of like really tragic fall from grace of like, you know, Ryuzo and Jin used to be best friends and now they're bitter enemies and they have to fight each other. And it doesn't come across at all because Jin is like upbeat and he's like, "Hey buddy, how's it going?" And Ryuzo's just like the most
I'm literally starving to death.
Yeah,
where's some rice?
Yeah, he's like, "Oh, I need rice." And Jin's like, "Okay, buddy, I can give it to you." And he's like, "No, I need to earn it." Like, okay. And like, he won't accept any favors. So then when he goes to the Mongol side, you're like, "Oh yeah, I guess," again, that part was spoiled for me, but you don't spend enough time with Ryuzo for that to feel like a huge betrayal because he acts like an asshole to you in the beginning. He acts like an asshole to you the entire time you're with him. And then, surprise, he's a bad guy, which I guess is like indicative of like Shimura, like his philosophy is so hyper focused that like literally doing anything, going back to this main story, literally doing anything else to help people makes more sense than being honorable to the point of death. It's the same with Ryuzo. It's like they want you to feel an emotional response, but they also don't want you to get attached to him. And then, like you said, you fight him in a duel that, you know, unless you're playing it on the hardest difficulty, you can pretty much own him easily if you've been leveling up and stuff like that. And then you fight him again, and it's supposed to be this like amazing, climactic, really sad, depressing battle, but you haven't interacted with him or anything near him in like 5 hours. So when you finally fight him and kill him, you're just like, another one down. So like
Yeah.
the story fails him, his characterization in the story fails him, the boss battle itself fails him, and he ultimately is like, and they never remove him from the tooltip in the rest of the game. It's like Ryuzo used to be with the Straw Hats and now he joined the Mongols, and it's like he's been dead for 8 hours. He's not in the game anymore. He's done. And they don't even comment on him in the last act. They don't even care about him.
They don't care about him at all. Also, it's funny that he's the leader of the Straw Hat Ronin, because it just makes me think of One Piece and the Straw Hat Pirates, and just how much I hate One Piece.
I wonder what will die first, you or One Piece.
I don't know. One Piece seems like it's going to go on forever.
It's gone on for about 10 years so far, and he's...
Yeah, it's crazy.
10 or 20 years, maybe? Yeah. Also, like, the Straw Hats are the most annoying enemies to fight in the game.
Oh, totally.
Aside from the dogs. So, like,
Yeah.
it like, when you do the face-off, which, by the way, the standoffs are amazing in the game, and the one-on-one duels are amazing in the game.
They are.
But when you do the standoff against certain Straw Hat Ronin, the Ronin will just stand there and wait, and you're just like, are you going to attack me? Because for, like, the kill streak. And, like, I was ready to go ghost mode, and I went into a standoff, and the guy just stood there. And I was like, I could either reset the game or attack him and continue playing the game. And I was like, fuck it, I'll just attack him and keep playing.
And then you
Bye-bye
lost all your health.
mode.
And your ghost mode.
Yep. So fuck you, game. Another,
Yeah.
like... But again, those things are so short. But yeah, Ryuzo completely failed by the story. Like, to me, Taka is sort of whatever. I didn't feel any emotional response when he got freaking beheaded. But I know a lot of people did.
Yeah.
And
I was just like, damn, son, they didn't have to chop his head off.
Yeah, I know. That was a little excessive. But then again, after you get the ability to go into ghost mode, every time you see a leader and you slaughter them, it's just like, fuck, dude, that's barbaric.
Yeah.
So that's cool. That's the other
So,
amazing thing about the game is the animations.
One interesting thing about this game is its perhaps its story is really a brilliant commentary on class.
I was thinking it was a brilliant commentary on video game storytelling.
Oh.
You first.
Well, so if you think about it, like, because I was thinking about Ryuzo and stuff, like, you know, samurai are a wealthy, privileged class that you get born into.
Mm-hmm.
And this is a feudal society. So there's entrenched aristocracy, and then there's just, like, peasants.
Yeah.
And Jin Sakai is secretly, like, possibly a Marxist revolutionary, because think about it, like, he uses the common people's methods of combat, you know, sneaking around, deception, trickery, asymmetrical warfare.
Asymmetrical warfare.
To defeat the Mongols, whereas Shimura, who lives in his fancy castle with thousands of servants who just suck his dick at the snap of his fingers, is like, no, the samurai way is to be honorable and wear really expensive, fancy armor and charge head first into battle, blah, 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 blah. Also, he talks a lot about how, like, you know, the shogun has marked Jin as a traitor, and, like, how the commoners are getting out of control, flocking to the ghost's cause, you know?
Yeah.
He's like, they don't obey their lords anymore. Like, they don't obey their superiors. And it's like, I was thinking about, it's like, damn, this is about the poor against the rich, isn't it? This is about class.
Yeah, a little. Yeah. And that's the most Kurosawa part of the story, is like the fact that it is negatively commenting on the point of the samurai.
Yeah, well,
So,
it is. It's
yeah.
extremely critical of the samurai and feudal society. It's basically saying, like, Lord Shimura is stupid. His methods don't work. The samurai way doesn't work. Their code of honor is archaic and will lead them to lose the war and have their entire island get destroyed. Whereas, like, you know, kind of lowering yourself to the commoner's way of fighting will actually turn the tide and save the country. And I think the other thing there's also some bizarro comments that Shimura makes when they're in the second act, when there's kind of this weird power triangle, or there's this weird thing where Jin is in the middle getting pulled one way by Yuna and pulled the other way by Shimura.
Right.
And I'll say I'm glad there's no romantic subplot between Yuna and Jin, even though it
So
felt like there was
glad.
going to be.
So
Because
glad.
it would have been so weird if there was, but like,
Oh God! Imagine the two potatoes making out.
oh God, it would be so bad. But
God.
there's a part in the second act when Jin single-handedly wins back an entire castle and saves hundreds of lives. And Shimura is chastising him for it. Like, how dare you take this entire castle single-handedly and save hundreds of lives? Renounce what you've done immediately. And Jin's like, the fuck you talking about, homie? And he's like, just blame it on the thief. And the way he says it is so bizarre. He's like, it's just like, just say that, you know, she hexed you with her dark,
With their
like,
evil demon magic.
with her evil demon thief pussy, like, and that you weren't thinking clearly. But now you're back with us. All us wealthy men who will just leap onto a sword for honor's sake, even if it means losing a war. And like that whole exchange is so bizarre. I'm like, what is he talking about? Is he implying that like he's pussy whipped into doing this? Or what?
I know that one person I was watching, they were like because the game forced you to use the poison, they were like that moment took all of the sort of like player directed conflict out of the game.
Yeah.
They're like there's no sort of moral stakes, there's no video game ambiguity, there's no real character choice because I was forced to do it this way. And like the game does have this problem of things that you would normally as a player do otherwise, the game will force you to do differently. Because like the game at times will force you to, oh, you have to sneak. And it's like, well, if I wanted to play this game the entire way through as a legit samurai, which of course I did for the most part because I'm basic like that and I like to club things with heavy, like bigger clubs, I couldn't do that.
I too like to hit people with the stick.
I'm the dumb samurai who wanders into the middle of the battlefield and starts attacking everyone and dies many times. That is me.
I know. That way is more fun, though.
Well, I would say because of like there's something to be said for like the fact that Metal Gear made stealth gameplay fun, and between Metal Gear, Assassin's Creed, Sly Cooper, even like all of that can create a fun stealth atmosphere. The stealth gameplay in this game is really fun. It's kind of half baked, but it's still for the most part pretty fun. Which leads me to another criticism, which I at some point I will need to get to my criticisms of the game. But the game is very particular about telling its story the way it wants to tell the story. Yeah. And I think someone took issue. I know people who've taken issue with that. Like, well, even if I wanted to do this my way, I can't. Because the game literally tells me to do it this other way. Or if it doesn't, it will just do it and I have no choice in the matter. Like with the poisoning of the Mongols.
Yeah.
So,
but yeah, I thought the weird like Shimura doesn't like Yuna, tries to convince Jin to disown her, but in like the weirdest way possible.
Yeah.
Implying that they have some kind of relationship when they don't. But then the game hints that they're like developing a relationship, and I'm really hoping they won't. Like that's a huge, just messy knot to untangle. But
hey, man, this game's #progressive because of a man and a woman can have a relationship that is not of a sexual nature.
Good. So I don't want it to be of a sexual nature.
You know, Jin and Masako. Yeah, I'm glad they didn't either. They did by the end of the game feel like legit friends, Yuna and Jin. Like, yeah. You know, I agree with you. Like Shimura charging in and being like, disown this person who literally saved your life 3 times. Disown her. Like, well, what is more honorable in that case?
Well, and then it's like also, you know, like to avoid being executed by the Shogun, sell her out so she can get executed by the Shogun instead. It's like, bro, what?
Yeah.
That's fucked up.
Yeah. Hey, man, it starts the conversation of what does it mean to be honorable? And like I said, that's like earlier I said there's nothing very Kurosawa about this game, but that is very Kurosawa. Like, what does it mean to be honorable?
Yeah.
Is it this traditional sort of formal samurai, I will disown you thing? Or is it, loyalty to your friends, loyalty to the people who support you? And
Yeah.
yeah, like I said, the game is very obvious and obtuse about it. They're like, clearly Shimura's obsession with honor is wrong. That's why the end of the game isn't, do I choose Shimura or Yuna? The end of the game is the way the end of the game is.
Obvious and obtuse mean two different things, right?
Oh, forget obtuse, obvious. Well, I won't make the obvious. Oh, I'll cut it out. No, I'm just gonna own it. You slap the English language. Boom.
So, what are your criticisms of the game beyond what we've already discussed?
A lot of it is nitpicky, I will admit. But I will start with, like, as far as an open world game, it's a very large open world, and there is a lot of stuff to do, but a lot of the stuff tends to get repetitive, especially by the time you're in the middle of the second act. You find this place, you work it down, you succeed. There's a lot of the things that I think are really fun to do, like they have little mini games for increasing your resolve by finding the bamboo poles. I found all of those really fun, but there's only 18 of them. The game feels like it feels like it's rich with content, kind of. So what I mean by that is, like, the bamboo poles, they're there, but it's a very short mini game and you can never really do them again. The haikus, I found the haikus kind of goofy, but I found I found the experience of it really cool because, again, the music carries it through. And, like, what you were saying,
they're always in very beautiful locations.
They're always in beautiful locations, and it allows you to really enjoy the environment. So for those reasons, I like it. But, like, there's a cap on how many that they could do. Yeah. So, like, coming off of a game, like, I never told you this, but a lot of the time I would play it. I think my favorite open world game that I've played was Yakuza Kiwami. Because the world is small, so it doesn't feel like you have to run too far to get to any one location. And the world is dense. So it goes for more stuff to do in a limited space, whereas a lot of open world games go for less to do in wider areas. And Ghost of Tsushima feels like that. There's a lot to do in a wide area, but a lot of what you do ends up getting really repetitive. So I feel like if they had more content in the form of, like, mini game type things, it would have helped me feel a little bit better about it. Now, with that said, the mini games that they have, like the platforming to get the charms and everything, is really cool. I wish there was more of it, but I'm glad of what I have. I don't know if you can respond to that if you want to.
No. I think I agree for the most part with what you said.
Okay. The next thing that kind of bugs me is, like, so we talked about Yakuza Kiwami, how it's like it's very dense with a small space. On the other end of the spectrum is Death Stranding, which is a very focused gameplay mechanics, I should say, in a very sprawling world. So, like, I can apply the problem I have with Ghost of Tsushima to Death Stranding, except that the actual mechanisms of gameplay in Death Stranding are so strong that they compensate for any sort of content deficiencies I have. Because the act of just walking around in Death Stranding poses, like, a puzzle problem in the sense of scaling areas, but also a fun aspect because it's just very entertaining to navigate through the world. Again, the second half of Death Stranding kind of suffers after it gets less creative with sort of like the generic weapons and stuff like that. But by then you have mechanisms to go faster. So in a mechanical sense, Death Stranding is like, it hits that perfect sweet spot. Ghost of Tsushima has a problem in that it has a lot of gameplay styles in the game. Sometimes they mesh really well and sometimes they don't. And here's an example. If you want to assassinate someone, you get into your assassination stance, but then you have to wait for the prompt to occur. If the prompt doesn't occur, you attack them and all of a sudden everyone rushes you. Like, okay, that's fine. But now you're saying that my reliance on whether I can do something is based off of a prompt. Every single button in the game is used to the point that the button you use for changing stances is the same that you use for doing every other action, which you might not have run into any issues with that, but I ran into, like, a good handful of issues where, like, I would hit the button, it would pull up, it would like grab the item but not pull up the menu because they don't have anything in the game where like you hit the button and if you continue to hold it, it brings up the stance wheel.
Yeah, so, I never ran into that issue.
Okay, I ran into it a couple of times, but it kind of just like again, all of the gameplay systems in the game are separate from one another. They're not as cohesive as I would have liked, which I granted is a personal issue. It's like, oh, that sounds like a personal problem, Matthew. It is, but it also means that, like, I guess you could say it's similar to Grand Theft Auto 5, where, like, the driving controls are very different than the bicycle riding controls are very different than the walking mechanics. You know, like, I guess it's like an American developer thing versus, like, a Japanese developer thing. But that did bug me in that all of the gameplay mechanics are good, but none of them are amazing to me. They're all solid, but none of them are like transcendent.
I kind of disagree with that. I think for me, the combat is amazing. I love it. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, the stealth isn't quite as good. It does, like you said, feel a little bit half-baked, but they include everything they need, and it works well enough.
I mean, did you ever use the firecrackers or the wind chimes?
I use the wind chimes.
Okay. Yeah, like there's
because like, it's got everything you need.
Yeah.
Or that you would need to use. You don't have to use it all either.
Yeah, but like there's other things like when you're fighting, you have the square button that attacks. You have the triangle button that does a heavy attack, and then you can hold the triangle button to do a secondary move. Mm-hmm. And I feel like they probably could have gotten away with like having the square button to attack and you hold the square button for a heavy attack. And that's about the amount of depth you need, and then you free up a button to do anything else you need it to do. So I, like from a controller point of view, I know this is getting really ticky-tacky, but like
this is super ticky-tacky.
I know, but it is kind of an issue when it's like I did get used to the control scheme, but I never thought the control scheme was particularly amazing. I mean, all of the arrow keys do something, and you have to swipe the pad to do something, and like no button goes unused, which you could say is good design, but I had issues with the way that it was mapped, and you cannot remap them. So like if I wanted to put sprint instead of clicking down to circle, you're not allowed to do that. So like again, it probably comes from more of like, well, in Devil May Cry, you can remap the buttons however you need to. Like I know it's kind of a personal thing, but at the same time, it's like I don't feel like all of the button commands. I feel like the control, like how you use them on a controller, could have gone through one more revision. Like, hey, let's really think about how all of this works together. What does the circle button's the dodge button, right? Where you have to buy two different dodges. The other thing, I don't think you experienced this, but I definitely experienced this. The progression of the game felt super like. It felt a little strange to me, where like by the halfway point, I had every single ability I needed. I had every single ability ever, I should say.
That plays in more, I think, to how you play the game than the game itself.
Yeah.
Like if you just stuck to the story, you'd probably be underleveled. If you're doing everything you can find, you'll be overleveled, and they're expecting you to kind of balance it out, probably. Maybe. Expecting most players will strike a balance.
Yeah, I guess so. I was kind of surprised at how fast that hit, and then I was like, oh, I guess there's nothing else for me to do in a lot of these combat encounters through the rest of the game. And then one of the other huge things that I had an issue with, which I still do, is like, this is basically Fashion Sim the game, because you have to change your outfit so many times for any situation you're in, which I liked, but they needed to have a faster way to do it in most circumstances for me. Now, a lot of the issues I had with it were alleviated with the patch that was released, because now you can do gear swap outs. You can have whatever it's called, kits. And that made one of the more annoying aspects of rearranging all of your charms. Oh my God, so much better, because now I just quickly switch to the outfit I need to, and I don't have to worry about anything like that. So that's something that was really good. But yeah, those are kind of my major complaints, and they happened at the very beginning of the game, and they never really went away. They kind of receded
Yeah.
as I saw the game less as like a super prestige-y game and saw it more as just like, this is a vehicle for people to have fun, and we're not trying to push the envelope.
I don't think prestige games exist. Games are for fun.
They
If
should
they're not
be
fun, what's the point?
I mean, they should be fun, but there are some games that are kind of like, that are pretentious or are like trying to push the genre forward. And this felt, especially the lead up to it, felt a lot like it. Like they had a Kurosawa mode in it, and they were like, oh, the way you explore the wonderful vistas is all about, you know, this. And it's like, well, at the end of the day, are the mechanics of the game fun? And yes, all of the mechanics in the game are fun. Even if I have issues with most of the mechanics, there's still a lot of fun. Like the story, you know, the story I find kind of, it's kind of goofy.
Yeah.
Like, but like the character models, yeah, they're kind of goofy, but the way the armor is done is really cool. The way the outfits look in general is really cool. The way that the outfits change the way that the game is played is really cool. Some of the collectathon stuff of like, oh, okay, you got to level everything up is like, dude, I at a certain point I never had, like, my bamboo was always full. So there, like, I like that there are a couple ways to cheese some of the gameplay mechanics. The water stuff, the swim mechanics, just felt kind of distracting more than like engaging, because like you can only go under the water or across. There's no sprinting or anything like that. So it's almost
you can't
like
sprint on top of the water.
Oh my god!
Like the Flash.
You can't do a fast swim. You just do your regular swim motion like the whole game. Like, oh man, I'm glad I didn't have to cover too many bodies of water. But again, like I think those things, like in a game that I think is like a perfect game, like especially the mechanics and the controller thing bugs me a bit. But the details are there. Like like I think I know I mentioned the sound. We haven't really talked a lot about this, but the other thing that is just perfect in the game are the animations. Maybe not all of the cinematic animations, but like an example, in-game animations, like when you cut down a guy in a duel, and it's not a story duel. There's this way that Jin clears his sword where he just like, he flips it over and then flips it quickly to clear it of blood. And it's like, you only get to see that in the duels, and it's the best thing ever. And it's so satisfying when he does it. And like all of that stuff is awesome. So like the animations and the sound design and the environment work is just fantastic. And like no game needs to look that good and do that well. And so like, you know, what other animations are really good? The thing about the horse, can I comment on the horses quickly? I know I've rambled on. The whole like, choose this horse. This is going to be the horse you have the rest of the game, and then you lose that horse in the second act, and then they're like, you have this other horse, and then oh hey, you have another horse, and this is going to be your only horse for the rest of the game. It's like, dude, why even put the tooltip there? Why even do that? That was like that was a groaner for me. Like, because I think they wanted that aggro experience from Shadow of the Colossus. Yeah. And like it just, like a lot of the emotional moments in the game, it just fell flat.
Speaking of Shadow of the Colossus,
yes.
You know, at the end, Jin lives in a shack.
Yeah, he does.
So on his desk are a bunch of like dolls of various PlayStation characters. One of them is the first Colossus from Shadow of the Colossus.
Oh. Ah. You can tell I spent no time looking in the shack. As soon as I beat the game, I was like, I know I have a couple of other things to do, but I haven't touched it since then. Oh. So what other PlayStation characters are there? Because you were telling me that there's like a ton of them, and I'm like,
there's a few of them. There's like Ratchet from Ratchet and Clank.
Okay.
There's a car there, which
Gran Turismo.
I mean, maybe it's Gran Turismo. Yeah, I don't remember what the other ones were, but there's a few.
Jack and Daxter.
They may have like Sackboy or something.
Oh, that would make sense. Sackboy's got his own launch title on the PlayStation 5.
I think Ratchet and Clank, there's also a launch title on the PlayStation 5. Or like soon to come out title.
So speaking of ending, what did you decide to do at the end of the game after you defeated Shimura?
I decided to let Shimura live.
I wonder what the stats are for that, because I did too. I almost wanted to like call you up and be like, hey, what ending, quote, ending, unquote, did you choose? Because really the ending, this is why I think it's just like a comment on modern video game storytelling. The ending of the game, it doesn't change anything but I think like 2 animations. And so it's like all of this buildup of like, give me an honorable death. And it's like, I don't have to. I don't have to give you an honorable anything. It's like, it has no effect on the game. Nothing you do in the story has an effect on the game except that it opens up new areas and gives you new abilities. And kind of like an old school game storytelling. So, yeah, I let him live as well. I'm kind of like, maybe I should go back, play through just the story missions in Kurosawa mode and get to the end and see what it's like. But fuck, good luck playing through the game in Kurosawa mode. Oh my god.
I've heard Kurosawa mode's not that good. Especially because you can't hear shit. The sound mix is just ruined. It's all mono.
It's not ruined because, again, I played off of my TV speakers, so it still sounds good, and it's funny that way. It's actually like the visuals, because they take away the health bar for the bad guys, which is not a huge deal. But like the contrast is so high that there's a lot of stuff, that gets lost in the blacks and the whites. So like it can be kind of hard to tell exactly what's going on. And it's also kind of like, why would I do this? Because it's like when you play Arkham Asylum and you have detective mode on the whole time. It's like, well, yeah, but I want to enjoy the way the rest of the game looks. It's like, why would I put on this black and white filter? And the game is so long that it's like, well, maybe I'll just start over from the beginning to watch all the cutscenes. It's like, you really got to put in a time commitment to play the whole game in Kurosawa.
Well, it's like what we were talking about with 3-hour movies. It's like, I don't want to do that. And it's like, it's not even a good 3-hour movie.
Watch Citizen Kane with colorized mode that never got released. Ugh. Yeah.
So one of the things I really loved about this game, and it goes hand in hand with one of the things I really hate about this game, is I really loved all the legendary quests.
Oh, yeah, thanks for reminding. Yes.
They're a blast to play. They always introduce unique scenarios. I think my favorite was probably the Ronin one, where you have to duel 5 Ronin in 5 scenic locations to unlock the Super Ronin and duel him in another scenic location.
Yeah.
The thing that it goes hand in hand with something I really hate, which is Yamato the musician. He is so fucking annoying, and the way he talks is really weird, and I hate how he refers, like, they call quests or missions tales in this game, like the tale of so-and-so. And I hate how he refers to them as tales as well, because he just sounds like an artifact of the game in a weird way. But then also, he's like, he said, like, every tale involves a legendary mythical figure, and either their magic weapon or magic technique or magic armor. And whatever the person's name is, he says it with the exact same intonation every time, even if it doesn't flow with the rest of his sentence. So, like, take
Wait, are we talking
Gosaku's
English
armor.
or Japanese?
English.
Okay. I have nothing to go off of because I listened to him in Japanese the whole time.
Okay, so take, like, Gosaku's armor.
Mm-hmm.
He says Gosaku as Gosaku every time. Once there was a man named Gosaku, and he was attacked by bandits. When the bandits arrived, Gosaku put on a suit of magic armor. Then Gosaku went out into the field and defeated all the bandits single-handedly. Afterwards, Gosaku. And it's like, what kind of a performance is this? Who was the voice coach on that? This is terrible. It sounds like they took like it sounds like they took like a Mad Lib, ripped out all the proper nouns, and then just took the same sound bite of one proper noun and filled it into the Mad Lib. And it's so irritating to listen to.
No, stop it. You're knocking the sound mix. We're not allowed to do that. I wonder if they pulled it from the Japanese voice actor. Like, the Japanese voice actor sounds probably exactly like you think he would sound. He's like, oh, like he has like a strained voice as he's saying like the stories, like a harsh, strained voice, and it's really effective. But like, I wonder if they just took him saying Gosaku, and they're just like, all right, I'll just plug it in here because the American voice actor didn't know how to say that word. Gosaku.
Gosaku.
Gosaku. I don't know. Like that's weird because the actual scenes of like the paintings coming to life are so cool. There's nothing about the legend missions that I don't like, except maybe their length, because
I like their really length, though. They're all really long, but it helps the stuff feel earned. I mean, like I said, they have you do cool stuff. There's a lot of cool one-on-one sword fights. Almost every single one features a cool one-on-one sword fight.
Yes.
In a cool, kind of hidden, secret, but also very pretty-looking location.
Yeah, the only reason I say I don't like the length, like, to be clear, the reason I don't like the length isn't because of like, oh, Matt, you just don't like playing long missions. It's because sometimes I would start it right when I had to go and do something else, and I was like,
oh no, I sympathize with that for sure. It's like, I have a limited time and I can't do a 2-hour quest.
But they felt epic, which I liked. Which again, the problem is like if you're playing through the game and you're going through it, and all of a sudden you have to do all of the duels, and you're like, oh, do I stop my Legends quest and continue with some of the other side quests? Which might have been why I felt like they were so long, like the game felt really long in the second act, is because like the one where you duel all of the people, especially if you just stumble onto it, like I fought one duel before I even got the quest.
So did I, yeah.
Which was cool. I was like having more, that's another example of things like more content in the game, like put in like a cool tournament thing where you have to do like 8 duels in a row or something like that. Like the duels are so fun and so well conceived, and in areas like you said that are really awesome, or that take advantage of the particle effects, or like all of that stuff is really cool.
Well, I think the duels are at their most fun when you sort of stumble upon them. Like a lot of the stuff that's just sort of out in the world to do. Yeah.
I will say I got tired of the foxes. It's like every time I move around, it's like, oh, fox den. I'm like, God damn it. Fuck. Now time to watch like the fox do is like really, really natural, but also kind of a pain in the ass pathfinding. Like, here we go. All right. Here we go.
And then it's like, oh shit, I lost the fox in some grass. I got to go back to the tree.
Gotta look around. Where is he? Why is he red in red leaves? What the fuck? Yeah, those, and like again, those are the most annoying, and those are the most plentiful. It's like, God damn it. More duels. Duels would have been better, but I agree with you. The legendary missions were my favorite because a lot of the missions ended up feeling kind of rote after a while. It's like fight some people, investigate the area, find footprints, track the footprints, fight people, done. At least with the Legends, they were constantly like, oh, here's, like whoever was working on the Legends ones and whoever worked on the climbing tower thing, even though I had some problems with the physics engine, all of the platforming was a lot of fun. I wish some of it were better integrated so that there's certain walls that were there or mountainsides. And it's like, I wish that they had done a better job of making it so that most mountainsides were scalable instead of just like, you can only scale mountains at these specific areas, because then I'd have to go all the way around an area. And it just added unnecessary length to the game at certain points. So,
yeah. But yeah, the legendary missions are awesome.
They are.
They're a lot of fun.
I'll say this. I don't want a Ghost of Tsushima 2. I don't want a sequel to the game.
Neither do I.
I think it would cheapen the game overall. I think like what's there is everything they wanted to do. To create a second one would only feel like a cheap cash grab, which I don't think Sony would do.
Well, they did it with The Last of Us.
I don't know.
If there's one game that did not need a sequel, it's The Last
of Us. Yeah, but everyone wanted the sequel, and so Naughty Dog had to do it. They couldn't just settle with having a great game in Uncharted 4. They just had to make another.
Who in their right mind would ask for a sequel to The Last of Us? Who is out there playing the first Last of Us, getting to the end and being like, wow, I can't wait to find out what happens next? Like, tying this back to the beginning of the episode. This is like watching In the Mood for Love and being like, oh boy, I can't wait to see the sequel to this movie, which is ironic because there is a sequel.
No. Oh my God. Is there really? Is it directed by Wong Kar-wai?
Yeah, Wong Kar-wai I guess, actually made, like, it's part of a series of movies that are all very loosely connected.
Oh, well, loose connections are fine. But direct sequels? Like Ghost of Tsushima 2, Jin's Vengeance. It's like, we already did that.
You gotta remember, it's Wong Kar-wai, so it's a loosely connected direct sequel.
Oh, right. It's like Maggie Chung washing dishes for 2 hours. Like, this is my sequel. Like, what? Why is she washing dishes? Why is that all she's doing? Yeah, I never played through The Last of Us all the way because I had gameplay issues. And I wasn't willing to deal, like, gameplay issues that I wasn't willing to deal with in that game that I was okay with dealing with in, like, Uncharted. Specifically Uncharted 4. And clearly I guess because, like, with The Last of Us, it felt like gameplay took a backseat to story a lot of the time. And I just didn't want to deal with trying to figure out how the mechanics worked in The Last of Us. Whereas, like, the gameplay mechanics in Ghost of Tsushima, readily available, teach you quickly, get in the game, start finding stuff really fast. Game's open world, so you can approach it any way you want to. And they don't, like, there are a lot of barriers to unlocking a lot of cool stuff, but the barriers go down extremely quickly if you focus on them. So
That's true.
Do you have anything else to say about Ghost of Tsushima, or should we get into our ratings?
I think we can get into ratings.
You want to go first?
Yeah, I'd say it's a shiny and chrome. I really enjoyed this game. I think it's a good send off for the PS4, because it's kind of the last major game to come out for it.
Yeah, screw it. I'm gonna say you convinced me enough. I'm gonna give it a low shiny and chrome. I think it's definitely worth playing. I think there are a couple of things that hold it back. I've kind of outlined a couple of them, but I agree it's a good send-off for the PS4. Would you buy a PS5 just to play this in 4K?
No, I would only buy a PS5 to play Cyberpunk 2077 on a system that won't, like, break down, catch on fire, and blow up my bedroom. Because the game apparently is so massive, it's destroyed every console they tried to test it on.
Cyberpunk, what is it? Cyberpunk 2077? 2075?
77.
So the only way they can run that is on the Amazon servers.
I know. I mean, if I got a PS5, I definitely would play more Ghost of Tsushima. Like, liberating all of the islands and getting all the collectibles. Like, I'm a fan of the Infamous games, and even after I beat those games, I would still, like, run around the cities and clear out all the bad guy, like, strongholds and complete all the little side objectives. So
yeah, I mean, I almost went, like, I have one more area I have to liberate, and then I'm done. And again, the Legends mode is nice because you jump in on it, you can jump in with some friends and play it. But, like, the game it's so strange because the game is already so stable that, like, why would I play it on an up-res system when this is probably, like, one of the most stable games I've ever played in my entire life on the PlayStation 4. Like, they knew exactly where to limit it and where to push the limitations of the system. So I just thought that was interesting because, like, a lot of people are like, oh, you can finally play it in 4K. It's like, so you can see even more of the potato sagginess of Jin's face? Or, like, how the armor clips through all the time, even though they did a really good job of trying to avoid that from happening?
Just focus on the particle effects, Matt.
Oh my god, dude. I go into photo mode so many times because I don't know if you saw it. There was this one story of, like, oh, this professional, like, video game cinema editor or, like, cinematographer has, like, been having a lot of fun with the photo mode in the game, and I was like, fuck, dude, challenge accepted. So now I start taking a bunch of photos and I try and do them of, like, really cool or interesting things, and, like, the photo mode's awesome. Like, there's a lot of things that are very, like, lame Matthew Filmy type stuff, like the depth of field is done in f-stops. It's not done in, like, a percentage meter, which I like. You can increase the particles, you can change the face. The the lens is done in millimeters. It's not just done in like generic zoom thing. It's like, oh, you can do a 50 millimeter lens or a 230 millimeter lens. I'm like, I like that stuff, even though the lens blur is not the best. It's good. It's good. It's good enough. It's good enough. But like when you're in those duels and like Jin's blurred, it just looks like his textures didn't load properly. And then like when it rack focuses to his hand, you're like, oh, that's supposed to be the lens blur. Oh, I gotcha. I don't know if you know what I'm talking about.
Not really. I haven't played around in photo mode that much.
No, I mean in regular duels.
Oh.
When it's like showing the bad guy and then it rack focuses to Jin's hand, but like before it rack focuses, he just looks like an unloaded model.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, so
I know what you're talking about there.
It's like they're so close. They almost had the perfect lens blur in a video game, but
yeah,
no,
this may be a factor of me not playing a lot of video games or a wide variety of video games, but I think Ghost of Tsushima might be my game of the year
for this year.
Yeah, for 2020.
I mean, what else came out?
SpongeBob SquarePants Battle for Bikini Bottom Rehydrated, which is amazing.
Let's see. I don't know what else came out this year because like
Neither do I.
The Last of Us Part 2 came out, and this seems like a direct like, oh man, people really hated that. This is much more palatable for most people.
Yeah. I'm just trying to, because there's like not a whole lot of other games that were like a big deal that came out so far. I mean, I know we're in the season of big games coming out, but at the same time, it's also a new console generation, which means a lot of the new games coming out probably won't be that great.
Yeah.
I mean, Spider-Man Miles Morales is getting good reviews, but it looks like the other Spider-Man game and the other Spider-Man game just looked like Arkham Asylum, but with Spider-Man.
Arkham Asylum, but with Spider-Man and less care and thought put into like the mechanics of some of the gameplay stuff. Although I hear they nailed the web swinging.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
I mean, then there's like Assassin's Creed Valhalla, which is like I don't think anyone has cared about Assassin's Creed in a long time.
It's weird because like the games are still like pretty good. Like I didn't play Odyssey, but a lot of people love Odyssey. I played through Origins, and Origins was fun, but that's just it. Like it was fun. Like,
dude, Austin loves Odyssey.
Yeah, Odyssey, like my friend, a lot of people loved Odyssey, but it's gone away from Assassin's Creed type stuff. Like in Valhalla, I don't think you do a lot of assassinating in it.
I don't know why they call it Assassin's Creed anymore, as opposed to just like Viking game, the game.
Yeah. I mean, it's a lot of it's brand recognition, but I think a lot of it, like there is a I think Origins started a continuing storyline with like this girl who is also a lesbian, because that's something that, if you're not a dad in a video game, which you are in Assassin's Creed Origins, but if you're not a dad, then you're a lesbian, because, storytelling, I guess. Modern storytelling. And I think she's going and like, she's trying to uncover the truths about, I don't even know, because the stuff in the real world, quote unquote, of Assassin's Creed is so convoluted at this point. But I think it's continuing that
at this point.
I don't know. Well, there's the Watchdog game that came out, Watchdog Legion, which should not be confused with the Exorcist Legion.
I mean, the issue with Watch Dogs is the first game was so underwhelming that like I'm not interested in any sequels to it.
Yeah, I heard I heard the second game was really good because the protagonist wasn't generic white dude.
Well, was also a daddy. Yeah, it's like I've heard it's better, but I don't care.
Yeah.
I was gonna say the only other reason I would get a PS5 at this point is because I have a 4K Apocalypse Now Final Cut.
Right.
That would be fun to watch in 4K.
Yeah. Because that's exactly what you need. Well, do they also have copies of Apocalypse Now and Apocalypse Now Redux in it?
It has everything. So it's got
even Heart of Darkness, the making of.
It's a 6-disc set of Apocalypse Now, Hearts of Darkness, Apocalypse Now Redux, and Apocalypse Now Final Cut, all in 4K and Blu-ray.
So are the movies split over 2 discs? Is that why it's 6 discs?
I mean, no, I think it's like one disc contains multiple movies and multiple special features.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
So looking at it right now, The Final Cut gets its own Ultra HD disc and its own Blu-ray.
Yeah.
It looks like Apocalypse Now and Apocalypse Now Redux are on one disc for Ultra HD, one disc for regular Blu-ray. Let's take a look. Yeah. And then the special features are just Blu-rays, I think. So that would include like Hearts of Darkness, among other things.
So now you can see like all of the boogers in Martin Sheen's nose.
Hell
he's like
yeah.
staring at the fan. It's, like I wonder if they go in with those things and they're like, Walter Murch, do you want to go in and retouch up your sound mix on them? Because like that's the thing. It's like Walter Murch's editing is fantastic, but also his sound mixing is the thing that the movie's really, among other things, but like that's like the major thing that I think about when I think of like the post-production on Apocalypse Now, I guess. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, there's not enough for me to get a PlayStation 5 until like next year maybe, when everything's stable. And even then I'll probably wait because I've got a backlog of games I need to tackle.
Yeah. Well, and also there's no PlayStation 5s available anymore. They all sold out like instantly.
Yeah, because of people who need to get it immediately so that they can play. All of the people that have PlayStation 4 Pros and have played all of these games in 4K are like, I can finally play it 4K 60 frames a second, which like, I get, but I'd rather play a game in 1080 and 60 frames than 4K and 30 frames. So just change your PS4 Pro instead of 4K output, change it to 1080 so you can play it faster and more stable. It'll save you $600, and then you can buy an arcade cabinet that has like all of the Ninja Turtles games on it. And the Simpsons arcade game, which clearly is a better value. Clearly. Well, you can buy NBA 2K21, which everyone hates. So, yeah. Ugh, I hate new console generations. I hate it. I don't have anything else to talk about. What about you?
No, I'm good.
Yeah. Well, you know, maybe someone would be interested in reading your article about Under the Wheels Halloween movies. Where could they find that? Oh, well,
if they were so inclined, they could find it at underthewheels.com, which is our website, not that horrible abomination of a URL we used to have.
Yeah. Hey, man, Blogspot was free.
True.
And it's still where I post the episodes.
You can also, read Matt's article about Witness that I brought up earlier in the show on underthewheels.com. Be sure to like us on Facebook. You know, the podcast, I'm sure if you're listening to it, you found it on one outlet, such as Apple Podcasts, where I do hope you leave a rating and review. Or YouTube, where be sure to subscribe.
Yeah,
music is anything.
Music by Mike, who also is on Twitch. I'm gonna plug his Twitch because that's where I watched a lot of Ghost of Tsushima. He did a really good job of kind of going through some of the finer points of the game. If you've never seen it, if you're interested in playing it, he does streams every day. He plays a bunch of different games, including the Arkham games and things like that. He did our music, so if you ever want to see what his face looks like, you can see him at Mike Rules on Twitch. Hey man, you gotta plug the system, dude. He gets that money, and then he can do more music for us for free. And that's the goal of everything, is to get free content that we don't have to worry about licensing issues over. And if you have any comments or questions, underthewheelsblog at gmail.com, I think. Underthewheelspodcast at gmail.com, which you might have already said. Good talking to you again, sir.
Yeah, good talking to you as well, man.
Go ahead.
Wait, don't you do like a sign off, and you've just been under the wheels or something?
Yeah, I know. I'm trying to figure out a clever way to work in the fact that Ghost of Tsushima has, I guess, cartwheels, and not like cartwheels like the acrobatic activity, but there's a cart that horses drag. I don't know. I don't have anything for this. Game of the year, Ghost of Tsushima, probably going to win Game of the Year because it's just super solid. So that was
the game. And Cyberpunk 2077 won't come out until 2022 anyway. So
yeah, it probably won't come out until 2077. So many people have made that joke. That's so.
I know. It's so tired.
Kind of like all the people waiting for the game to come out. There's no way the game's gonna be like as amazing as everyone thinks it's gonna be, right? They're gonna have to cut a bunch of corners to get this thing out.
Probably either that or just wait a long time, because either it comes out and it's not as great as everyone hopes, or they just keep delaying it.
It's like No Time to Die. Like, I want it to be so good. Well.
Are you going to take the risk and go to a theater to watch the new Bond movie? No, of course not. It's No Time to Die right now.
Oh, man. Oh, my gosh. On that note, my name is Matthew.
I'm Gabe.
And you have just been Under the Wheels. I feel kind of bad because, like, I'm editing the Bly Manor episode, and I will say that basically, from what I gathered on our messages to Austin, basically all of Austin's hot takes were pretty much similar to your hot takes. But it would have been nice. Yeah. It would have been nice to have one more voice in the room. But I've added Haunting of Hill House because Austin has very rarely steered me wrong when it comes to television. So I'm excited to watch it and just like, just drown in the glory that is Mike Flanagan having control over every single episode of the series.
Yeah, I picked up Doctor Sleep on Blu-ray because it was on sale for like $7 or $8. Mm-hmm. So I'm gonna try and check that out at some point. The problem is like I'm debating whether to watch the regular cut of the movie, which is 2.5 hours, or the director's cut, which is over 3 hours. We'll see. I mean, it's just like whenever I see a movie that's 2.5 to 3 hours, it's like so prohibitively long. I need to carve out a decent chunk of a particular day to see it.
I know what you mean. Like I was looking for something to watch yesterday while I ate lunch, and like I almost put on The Thin Red Line because I'm like, I need to watch it. But I'm like, I'm only going to watch like up to an hour of it. So is it really worth watching an hour of it just to like then try and get back into it? So I put on Gemini Man instead, and it was,
oh my gosh,
for what I had to do, it was a better idea because it was a very dumb action movie.
Yeah.
Done by like an expert filmmaker. So it's very confusing. And I think I like that. It's my level of shitty. Get to my level, Ang Lee.
Academy Award-winning filmmaker directs like a really dumb, like Fast and Furious level.
Yeah. Well, it's like an old school
of a movie. I think just about every movie I've seen over the past 2 weeks has been like an hour and a half, or at least less than 2 hours. Mm-hmm. I'm like actively seeking out movies that are 90 minutes.
Yeah. I know it. I know what you mean. Like, especially if you're really busy and you don't have a lot of time, it's just like that. I guess that's why TV is nice. But then you can fall into the pit of like, all right, this episode's over. Might as well start the next one.
Because TV by law has to end on a cliffhanger. So you're like, oh, it's building up tension towards the next episode. I now have to sit and watch the next episode, just like how the lead in Bly Manor was choking for like 5 cliffhangers in a row.
I watched and I'm gonna post the link to it when I post the Bly Manor episode. But Best of the Worst did an episode on Bly Manor and Borat too, and I was like, this is oddly fitting.
Finished.